All right, good evening, Holliston. Welcome to the May 18th meeting of the Select Board. We're going to get started. We have a public hearing to talk about bicycles, electric motorcycles, and motorized scooters as they pertain to the traffic rules and regulations. This is a public hearing, so do we have a motion to open a public hearing for those?
Would you like me to read the notice or just move to open the public hearing?
Why don't you read the notice
Sure.
and then we'll make a motion.
The Holliston Select Board, acting as the traffic authority for the town of Holliston, will hold a public hearing on proposed amendments to the town of Holliston traffic rules and orders regarding definitions, operation, enforcement, and safety regulations related to traditional bicycles, electric motorcycles, and motorized scooters. Proposed amendments include regulations related to operation on sidewalks, trails, and public ways, speed limits, passenger safety requirements, and charging of electric vehicles in public spaces. The public hearing will be held this evening, May 18th, 2026, at 7 p.m. in Town Hall. I move to open the public hearing at 7:02.
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
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 All right, the public hearing is now open. So, Tina, it sounds like you've done a ton of work on this particular topic here. If we can have Frank pull up the proposals here, and Tina, if you could just kind of walk us through
Sure.
what we're going to talk about for the traffic rules.
So some of you may know that a year or two ago, the legislature created a micro mobility special commission to study the use and concerns and best practices around all different types of micromobility devices here in the Commonwealth, and they issued their report in January, and they had a number of findings. This actually does not reflect any of that. I bring that up as a comment because we're going to see a lot of activity from the legislature on micromobility devices, and that will come to bear on all municipalities across the Commonwealth. What I proposed through Town Council and working with the Trails Committee and consulting with the Holliston Police Department are changes that reflect current law as it stands today. So what we have proposed are things that update the traffic rules and orders to match law today.
Okay.
I do feel like the town of Holliston, with a 6.7-mile rail trail, with a strong biking and walking community to our schools, with an emphasis on sidewalk accessibility throughout the town, this is a very smart thing for us to be doing in general.
Mm-hmm.
It feels proactive to me. But it also keeps our focus on something that will over time change as the legislature addresses micromobility. So I see it being important on a number of different steps. But most importantly, it is bringing our traffic rules and orders up to speed to, that's not the right term here, up to match what is currently in state law. So
Okay.
First and foremost, though, our traffic rules and orders refers to the Board of Selectmen. So I am looking, one of our changes to be Select Board, to modernize what we adopted a number of years ago.
Indeed, yes.
We add some definitions just to explain what a traditional bike is versus an electric bike. We have definitions throughout the traffic rules and orders, so this is just adding that language in there.
Okay.
And then where it gets meatier is if you go down, so Article 1 again is definitions. If you go down, Frank, I think we jumped to Article 2 rather, which is to expand police duties. And so a lot of conversation with the Holliston Police about what they were comfortable with, what they saw as a need. And so the language reflects that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
again, complying with state law.
Okay. All right.
Article 3 is amended based on the fire chief and also council's feedback on charging of electric devices
Okay.
around town.
Yep.
Because you can't just charge anything anywhere at any time. You have to follow certain regulations. I won't get into the details here, but the traffic rules and orders just reflects public safety in that regard, fire safety. I don't know if the chief wants to add anything. It's pretty simple. Article 4, this is where we see changes that are not addressed in any way in the traffic rules and orders, and that's to say that you cannot ride tandem. So you can't put somebody on your handlebars, you can't put somebody standing up on the back of your bike, you can't put posts on your back wheel. This is consistent with state law.
Okay.
You have to have a valid seat. And the person riding must wear a helmet if they are under the age of 17.
Okay.
So that's Article 4. Article, what is that now?
7.
Doing the math real quick. 7. This is where we get I think the most important changes, and we have public comment here that I'll read when we're ready for it, related to this, but this is electric bikes in Massachusetts are not allowed on sidewalks. Electric scooters are not allowed on sidewalks. And so we have that at the bottom line, no electric bikes, scooters, motorcycles on sidewalks. That's state law. We just didn't have it in our traffic rules and orders.
And we're saying here too, by trails, we're also saying that rail trail should not have those
So
vehicles
it's
as well?
a little more refined. So on the rail trail, the state leaves it up to the municipality.
Okay.
So in consultation with the Holliston Police and then also the Trails Committee, it did not feel reasonable to exclude electric devices of all types on the rail trail.
Okay.
So where we've
Just
drawn
the
the line.
motorcycles.
Correct, an e-moto.
Okay.
And there's a part 2 to that, although it's not defined in our traffic rules and orders. E-motos are not allowed to be ridden by anybody under the age of 16. You must have insurance, you must have registration, and you must have a permit or a license.
Similar to a gas-powered motorcycle.
Correct. So this really gets to the meat of it. So we want to match this with education in the schools. So I believe the Holliston Police SROs have been in communication with the schools, and if not yet, they will be about bike education. The police have flyers created to hand out at school events, because there'll be a number of school events that the police will be at over the next couple of weeks
Okay.
to educate families, because many families wouldn't know this.
Yes.
And so we're just codifying what's already in state law here in the traffic rules and orders. And I think, Frank, that's it. If you scroll down, I don't think. This we talked about. I left it up there just to show that there was conversation about this. Maximum speed for bicycles, electric bikes, scooters shall be 15 miles an hour. There was back and forth. I was interested in seeing the town consider something like that. The police were not, for a very good reason, which is to say, how do you enforce it?
Right.
Are you creating a tension where people are saying, that bike's going way too fast, and now you're getting the police really called off the road from doing other types of enforcement to come now and enforce speed on the trail?
So that is in this document, but we are not putting that into the traffic rules
I
and
put it
orders.
here for conversation. I didn't know if you two would like to discuss it further. It is a hearing, but I'm not, at this point, I'm not in favor of adding that for the concerns raised by the police,
Yeah.
which really have a lot to do with reasonable enforcement. And also for the Trail Committee, they feel that that would be cumbersome to sign, to post throughout the trail, and how would you show that somebody was going over 15
I mean,
miles an hour?
inevitably, I think we educate and we make sure that people are going at a reasonable speed and that they're being safe on the rail trail. But we also want to make sure that if it's enforceable. I mean, we don't want to put in a rule that we can't.
At this point, technology does not allow you there's not good technology to mount a speed radar on a trail to capture a bike or a scooter. So you're really limited, and this is one of the things the legislature will take up over time,
Right.
is how to get that technology into the hands of municipalities like us that really want to have safety on our trails,
Right.
but want to do it in a reasonable, manageable way. So I don't recommend this, but I wanted to let you all know that it was a
Okay.
part of the conversation that we
Okay.
had with both police and trails. In terms of those speed and the concerns that many people have with speed, Frank, you also had the trail etiquette
Yep.
changes. So the Trail Committee, they're wonderful, wonderful people.
Yes.
We're blessed to have them doing
Yes.
the work that they're doing. They've already started to update their etiquette signs.
Okay.
And when Frank pulls that up, you'll see that they talk about speed in a common sense kind of way. So it's being addressed, it's just
Yeah.
not being addressed in our traffic rules and orders.
Sure.
So this is what they're looking to update the signage on the trail
Okay.
to include.
Okay. Do they want us to vote on this, or
Nope.
are they just going to make those?
Yep.
That's fine.
All we're voting on tonight is.
Other traffic rules and regulations. Okay,
Correct.
that's fine.
Yep.
That's fine.
Point of clarification on the electric bicycles. So it's the capability of the higher speeds that matters, not the actual speed employed. And does that cover mixed modal bicycles as well? So
Everything.
okay, so if a unit
Speed.
has the ability to engage an electric motor, even if it is not engaging that motor, then the rules apply. So for instance, there's electric bikes that essentially have a hub that is added to a normal bike.
Correct.
It can be engaged, but you
Right.
needn't. You can just pedal it if you'd like.
Right,
In that
correct.
case, it's whatever the max speed is going to determine.
It's the fact that it has a motor. So
Understood.
there's nothing with a motor allowed on a sidewalk
Okay.
unless it's a mobility device for somebody who's using a powered wheelchair. there are no, and that's been on the
Yeah,
books
it's
for a
been-
while. So we're just modernizing to include that in our traffic rules and
Great,
orders.
thank you.
Okay. Damon, do you have any other questions here?
No, I think that's the main one. I kind of agree with the enforcement mechanism problem that you mentioned. I think that gets into, not dangerous grounds, but it seems like we're going to make things very complicated if we go down that road. I think if a problem emerges, we can always pivot, which I kind of like.
And we can always change it if we need to.
Yeah.
Because these are policies, they're traffic rules and orders set by the select board, they're not town meeting or something like that, so.
In terms of education, the police will be, again, handing out flyers. We will also see sandwich boards with key pieces of information, particularly focused on the helmets and the no electric devices on sidewalks.
Like in Blair Square and
Correct.
maybe like Cross Street, like a couple different locations.
He ran down the list. I think at the schools, Blair Square, Goodwill Park.
Okay.
And there was a fourth location, I apologize, I'm blanking out, but they're all easy, you can pick them up and move them around. So the idea is they're going to kind of float around the community.
Yeah.
To remind people of
Okay.
how to be safe on a bike, so.
Sounds good, sounds good. Is there any, maybe talk about, like, because I know we have a couple bike shops that are close to the rail trail. Any talk about maybe like sort of looping them in so that they can kind of make sure that people are aware of some of those things as people go
So
and
for
do
sure,
their
bike shops are all in on this.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of conversation among bike shop owners about how to be responsible and meet the needs of their communities, which they know the risks here. Milford Bicycle was the bike shop that joined the police on May 1st or 2nd when they did their bike rodeo.
Okay.
My understanding is they'll plan another one. The police will plan another bike rodeo in the fall as
Okay.
kids are coming back to school.
Yeah.
But that's the extent to which I'm aware of bike shops being involved.
Okay. Okay.
Many communities, after a tragedy, will hold a community forum. That feels too heavy-handed, where this felt like a proactive step
Yeah.
to be responsible and try to get ahead of something.
Yeah, let's start talking about it. Let's put it out there and let's get the conversation out there and start educating people
Mhm.
about it.
Yep.
Any other comments before I see if there's any public comments? Okay. Since this is a public hearing for changes to the traffic rules and regulations, we're going to now see if there's anybody in the room who'd like to make any comments about these traffic rules and regulations. Based on the faces here, I think they're here for other reasons, but I just wanted to make sure that put it out there. If
I do
anybody
have
had-
one that was emailed in when you're ready.
Yeah, we'll get that one in 1 second. All right, I'm not seeing anybody in here. Anyone on the Zoom who wants to make any comments or has any questions about the changes to traffic rules and regulations that we're discussing this evening about e-bikes, bicycles, electronic motorcycles, and motorized scooters?
And
Okay.
also changing from Board of Selectmen to Select Board.
Yes, yes. That's an important change, too. And if you are on Zoom, you can raise your hand, and we can call on you if you'd like to make a comment at this time about those proposed changes. All right, I'm not hearing any. I'll go around the room one more time after Tina, if you could read the email.
Sure. So we have public comment from Claire Bresnahan, and she writes, "Greetings. We are requesting to keep the rail trail safe with pedaling of traditional bikes only, in consideration of the tax-paying Holliston citizens. Responsible citizens walking should not have to wear helmets and joint protectors because of irresponsible, selfish folks speeding by on motorized bikes or scooters. What is the town liability when citizens are run over by selfish riders? Respectfully, Claire and John Bresnahan." And to that, I would respond, if I may, that motorized bikes, e-motos are not allowed on the rail trail.
Okay,
And if someone sees an e-moto, they should report it to the police.
yes. Similarly, if they saw a gas-powered vehicle, they're all, it's a similar conversation. All right, one more time, anyone in the room or on Zoom have any comments here? Chief, was that an accident there? Chief Stone, did you want to make a comment, or you?
No, I was going to add, those sandwich boards, depending on the board's vote tonight, those sandwich boards are being made currently, so they should be ready for deployment probably by the end of the week, if not early next week. And the idea is to educate, just like when they make new changes, whether they be traffic or involving bicycles. Our goal is to get out there and kind of spread that message. So between the flyers and the sandwich boards and social media, that messaging will be consistent. So I think, as the trails get busier, the days are longer, we're hoping to hit a lot of people that are out there, especially where we have about 3 weeks left of school. We'll be handing those flyers out as well. So whatever we can do to keep people safe, both on and off the trail. We'll have extra patrol out there. We have bicycles ourselves. A lot of new young, fit officers who enjoy riding bicycles. So we'll try to get them out there when we can.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. Anyone else before we close the public hearing? Don't all jump at once? Okay. I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing at 7:17 PM.
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. All right, the public hearing is now closed for the traffic rules and regulations change. Discussion. Damon, any thoughts or concerns about going forward with these changes?
I think education will be kind of key. I think there are a lot of folks who are younger than 16 who are operating these vehicles right now. I see them all around in my neighborhood. They're not common, but there's definitely a group of kids who use them, and I think getting that information to people who are otherwise well-intentioned will be quite useful. Hopefully we have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to laying down the law. I'm sure that we won't be making people pay right away, but I think it's going to take a while before the word spreads.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. It's good to get to move towards educating people on being safe in with these kinds of vehicles and considering them. And as the legislature makes changes, we certainly can make future changes, and I'm sure there will be more as technology is very much in flux. And Tina, I want to thank you for taking the initiative on this. You brought this forward a couple months ago, and now bringing these rules to us. I think it's a good thing, and I appreciate your leadership on these issues. So
We do lots of things right in Holliston. One of the things we do really well in Holliston is our rail trail.
yes,
And promoting walking and biking to school among our children and everybody for that matter. And so this is just such a natural thing.
absolutely. Want to make sure it's safe, and want to make sure people continue to use it, and especially as the weather gets nicer, let's we want to encourage people to use it in a safe and productive manner.
Okay.
All right, so I will take a motion to make the changes to the traffic rules and regulations as presented.
Okay, so moved.
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
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 All
Thank you.
right. Tina, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief Stone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Tina.
And, all right, moving on. We're going to have a discussion about non-voting residents' attendance procedure for May 2026 town meeting. So tonight, we're just kind of looking to gather some information. We're not looking to solve the problem right here, right now, because we want to try to understand, what happened, and then we can basically try to work to make a better, create better outcomes for October. So a resident came forward with some concerns. She's here this evening, and I asked her if she'd like to come up and just sort of recount your story and just tell us a little bit about what happened. And if you don't mind coming on up, Pooja, we'd love to hear from you to sort of understand your experience. And apologies about what happened. We weren't there, but that's part of why it's important for us to hear from you directly, so we can understand kind of what was going on. So if you just kind of want to tell us a little bit about just name and address, and then a little bit about what your experience was at town meeting on last Monday.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Pooja Gupta, and I'm a resident at 105 Overlook Drive. So I came into the meeting because we had a topic about the school committee, and I totally understand we are a non-voting resident, but I do like to be informed and want to hear the perspective, right, as I have done in the previous meetings.
Mm-hmm.
When I check in, I'm well aware we have to sit in an area because we are not voting, so you want to make sure when voting happens, we are excluded because we don't have the right to be voting, right? When I came into the meeting this time, I was told I have to sit in an overflow area in the cafeteria. And when I asked, where is that coming from? And I was told, we are expecting more people to come in because, we have a school school topic, which a lot of people would chime in. And at that point, it was 6:50. Most of the room was empty.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we were trying to be proactive, but I didn't see much people.
Mm-hmm.
But I did go into the cafeteria at that point. There was only just one more person at that time in the overflow area who actually was with a lawyer. So she was not a resident of Holliston,
Okay.
but she was with a lawyer. And I don't know the name of the gentleman who came in. He checked and he told us, oh, you have to sit on these 2 tables. These are for the overflow area. There's a TV if you need to speak. Just let us know and we can facilitate that. 5 minutes later, he came back into the room and he's like, oh, you are with a lawyer? You can actually come into the room. And I was like, wait, that person is not even a resident.
Right.
And it's okay for that person to go in and not an actual resident, understanding both of us are non-voting, but I have a much bigger stake in the discussion happening in the room because it's about school. It's about my kid going to the school.
Right.
So that was a bit off. And that's when I brought it up to a few people in the room. I messaged Damon, I messaged Dan Alfred. They went up to James and they're like, hey, are you aware this is happening? Apparently looks like not much people were aware. So, I think at that point they went up to the moderator, spoke to the moderator that, hey, the room is empty. So
Yes.
can we just have her in? And that's when Dan and one of my friends came into the room and they're like, yeah, you can come back to the room.
Okay.
So my concern is I understand what was trying to be done because,
Right.
you are trying to be proactive, but it didn't look like it was needed. And the way it was handled, especially
Yeah.
non-voting resident versus a person who's just representing a lawyer.
Right.
Like the differentiation that was made was probably the thing that, was frustrating to me the most.
Sure.
And again, this is not the first time I'm coming in. I understand the process. I've been there to the town meetings. So to me, it was just a bit surprising. So maybe we could have done communication a bit better because if I have
Yeah.
to sit in a room to do it, I can sit in the home and
Right.
watch it. Like I
Right.
don't have to spend my time
Right.
making arrangements for my kid to show up at the town meeting.
Right.
So I think it's just a matter of communication. And if you're expecting this to happen, just tell us beforehand, right?
Right.
Not when I'm coming there.
Yeah.
And it didn't even look like we would have that many people present. I mean, even at the end, like, this room was still empty, so
Right. Yes.
I understand the proactiveness, but could have been handled a bit better.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I think we should just have a protocol for these things and handle it the same way every time. And I think we haven't had too many town meetings since I've been on the board where we've had need for an overflow, but we've been trying to be proactive because you just never know if you're going to get too many people because it has happened in the past. So I think, at the very least, we just need to basically have here's how we're going to handle it. Here's what's going to happen. And, if at 7:00 there's everybody comes in, we can figure out kind of a better way to handle it that's more clear and, to your point, communicated effectively. And I think we can do that and make better choices with that. Tina, do you have any comments or thoughts here?
I have two. So the town moderator and the town clerk are responsible for the function and the look and feel and flow of town meeting. And so what I would see the select board's role as is relaying the concerns to both the town moderator and the town
Yes.
clerk and liaisoning between the resident.
Moderator's on, actually, so I'm going to
Right.
have speaking.
Oh, okay, perfect. I don't understand a school committee member being, and I don't, James? I'm not
I think
sure.
it was just a communication that happened at that point in time because
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
surprise. It wasn't meant like I wanted them to jump in to do
Sure,
something.
sure.
It was more, hey, do you know this happened?
Yeah.
Kind of a
Yeah.
situation, right?
Well, I
Yes.
think
More than
perhaps,
anything.
perhaps what I would suggest as we look to solutions moving forward, because I agree with you, you should not have had that experience. It is our intention as a town,
Right.
the whole town, I'll speak on behalf of all of us, is to make it a welcoming space for everybody.
Right.
We work hard on that, so I apologize for it not feeling or being that for you. That's something we ought to address as a community. But I think in terms of communication,
Yeah.
who to reach out to if you have a concern. So in the case of town meeting, it would be the town clerk or
Yeah.
their staff and the town moderator.
And I think the idea here too is that because we're a public space, that we can be a public space to talk about those
Sure.
things and then bring those
Yep.
forward to the
Absolutely.
moderator and the clerk.
Yeah.
I see Michelle Zemer, who is the town moderator. She has her hand raised. If you want to unmute yourself, and if you just have any comments about what Pooja is saying right now, I'd love to hear from you.
Well, excuse me, first of all, I want to apologize that you had that experience. That shouldn't have happened. But I don't want to speak for Liz, the town clerk, who's not here. She's the one who made the arrangements for the overflow, anticipating a large crowd based on her previous experience with things having to do with school, excuse me, with school votes, where there had to be overflow. So I think it was really prudent of her to have that set up in advance. you never know how many people are going to come to town meeting. And I was actually surprised that more people didn't come, excuse me, with something school related on the warrant. But I just wanted to apologize if, that happened. And I'm sorry I wasn't more involved beforehand. I was, backstage, making sure that the honor guard was ready to go and that Adele was ready to sing her national anthem. So I should have been more aware of what was going on. But no one spoke to me about this. No one came to me, when I was on the stage there. It was people were reporting to Liz, and then Liz and I conferred, and we decided that we didn't need the overflow and that people should come back.
Okay.
I'm sorry that didn't happen earlier.
Yeah.
But I think that we've both learned from this experience. As I said, I can't speak for Liz. I can only speak for myself. And maybe it should have happened earlier. I don't know what happened with someone with an attorney that
Yeah.
I can't speak for, but I know, excuse me, I know that the town values every resident, regardless of if you're a voter or a non-voter. And I personally would let anyone speak at town meeting who had something to say, regardless of where you're sitting in the auditorium, or if you were in the cafeteria, if you had something to say. It wouldn't matter to me. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Michelle. I think, and I think the sort of what I'm hearing too is that I think everybody sort of had good intentions here, but I think we just could have had, like, we can sort of build in protocols to sort of say, like, hey, at this time, let's make sure, and then we can have somebody who's monitoring it who knows that if somebody's there, that they can make sure that, like, hey, at 6:50, if it looks like there's room, we ask them, something like that. We can have sort of like ways to sort of check-ins to make sure that you can be part of the process, that if that is the way that it needs to be in the first place, really. I mean, we could make the argument that people who are non-residents should be in there, not necessarily non-voters. So, that certainly could be the argument as well. So we need to do better, and I think that's really the thing. So, Damon, did you have any comments here before?
Yeah, I was really concerned when Pooja brought this up, and I don't want to second-guess the process or the decisions that were made running up to that. I think I can understand the logic of it, but I did want to say, from my point of view, the meeting has always been a public meeting. People bring their kids who are not voters, and on days where it's going to be a very expansive meeting with a lot of folks, we don't sit there and kind of like say, well, okay, that's a young person, they go in this specific room, and you meet this criteria, you go in this specific room. Right. So I'd prefer just a queuing system where first come, first serve, right, with a generic overflow strategy for anyone who comes later. We keep it simple,
yep,
we keep it equitable, and facilitate it that way. I think that I was expecting a lot more people as well, but when you brought this to our attention, I mean, my blood pressure went up a little bit. I understand it was totally well-intentioned, but I think we can do a better job, and it's not that complicated. So yeah. I appreciate that everyone seems like they're going to lock arms and try to figure it out. I don't think anyone had any ill intentions, but the sooner we can figure this out before the next meeting, the better.
Yes. Michelle, did you have another comment here?
Yes, about where people are sitting. I did an informal survey today of other town moderators, and no one has non-voters sitting with voters unless they have clickers, which are the electronic voting.
Okay.
So that's just something to throw out there. I've been an advocate for clickers since I was elected. So.
I do remember that.
Yes, well, we can talk about that as another topic. So another time.
Right, but that if you want to have a voice voting, where people are saying aye and nay, you really can't do it while people are mixed in.
Gotcha.
It's got to be a separation unless you have the clickers.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay. Good to know. Well, Pooja, we appreciate you coming forward to bring this to our attention, and we're gonna work to get it right next time.
Thanks for hearing out.
Thank you for bringing it forward and advocating, and we appreciate it all you do. All right. I'm not going to do public comment right now until we get to public comment, because we're not making any decisions about this. We just wanted to hear from Pooja about what was going on so we can do better next time, because we're just listening to her story at this point.
Okay.
And I
had
have,
a question for Michelle about that same topic, but there's another time to ask that question.
We have public comment.
yeah, we have public comment coming up in a few minutes, and I just wanted to,
Okay.
I apologize, but we
Okay.
can get to it in a few minutes. Okay, next we have a discussion about high school student parking on Marktree Road, Robin Hill Road. We had a public hearing in the fall, and we had at that time decided not to go forward with any changes to parking. In part, I mean, personally, speaking for myself, I was a little reluctant because it seemed like the people who were coming forward with the advocating for change were divided. Well, residents who were in the area were divided on it, and they were the ones bringing this forward as an option. And we were hopeful and clearly incorrect in our assumptions that things would be better this year, and they were not. And we are here because they are not better. I will say that as of the end of the week, the seniors are graduating. There will be plenty of parking, and that we expect the high school to get out good information to make sure that students do not park there. They should be made aware of that regardless. And I think we need to do something, make some changes here. I'm going to throw out a couple options for discussion here. The first is when you look at the location where the end of Marktree Road, where the cul-de-sac is, there's a fence and it's open. So one of the things, I actually spoke to an officer, a police officer, at something that we were doing the other day, and he said, what about we just put a gate there? And then it completely locks off that kids can't get in there, they can't go into the high school, it's inaccessible. So that was one particular option, and then it wouldn't require any restrictions to parking for residents whatsoever. Then they could park, they could do what they needed to do, they could have their landscapers, contractors, whatever they needed if they needed people in the area. But at the other side of that is it could restrict access for people in that area to get to the high school. That's sort of the trade-off. Inevitably, we're going to have to, if we're going to do something, there will be a trade-off. So the other option is obviously restricting parking during school hours. That has consequences as potential as well, because then it could be disruptive for residents who wanted, again, who have somebody's coming in or they're doing work or they need to do something in there that could be restrictive to the abilities for those people to do those kinds of things. So I wanted to sort of throw that out there as like a couple options. Obviously, the other option is we do nothing, but that clearly didn't work. So I'd like to see if we could do something, because we've heard from multiple residents that there are issues in this space. And I know there's people here who are interested in talking about it. So before I get to them, I just kind of wanted to hear from Tina and Damon, unless you want me to just bring residents up to talk before you chime in, or?
I'm personally great with residents. I have some ideas, but I think they're more for discussion
Sure.
at a different time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Did you have any?
I will say that from the first, when we opened the hearing months ago, I feel similarly. I would absolutely prioritize those
Yeah.
walking and biking and the safety
Sure.
of access for our emergency vehicles over any other
Absolutely.
considerations.
It's
So
a
just my
safety issue.
general lens
Yeah.
through which I'm looking at this is encouraging walking and biking and ensuring that emergency
Right.
vehicles have access. That, to me, those are the 1, 2, 3 in no order there.
Yes.
Priorities.
And I do recognize that a lot of what happens is, there's students are parking, they're getting their licenses in the spring, and as there's fewer parking spaces in the high school, they're parking on these roads. So the problem isn't really persistent in the fall, it becomes a spring issue, it becomes later in the spring issue. So we recognize that in October, hey, everything looks okay, and then in May, it's not okay. And so we do recognize that, that's why we're having this conversation. And so I see some people here, and I wanted to give them an opportunity to come forward if they'd like to say anything to us, if they wanted to make comments about this at this time. Yeah, come on, if you want to, you can come on up and give us your comments here about this. Sure, come on up. Come on up. Just give us your name and address and your comments about what's going on.
Okay, Jonathan Parker, 290 Marktree Road. So I guess, first of all, to address the comments that you just made, I personally, hearing that idea about closing off the fence, absolutely opposed to that trade-off.
Okay.
Because of the number of people, that walk and bicycle, from the neighborhood into the high school.
Sure.
It's just, to me.
Like during the school day, or like in general? Like, is it something where like you could be locked during school hours, or, open? I'm just sort of like, is it, or would you be just opposed to it altogether?
I'm opposed to it altogether.
Okay.
I just think that's a non-starter.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the parking ban that we've talked about, I think we've been talking about, at least my wife and I have been talking about, maybe a few modifications to it that might make it a little more palatable to the neighborhood. And I know that after the last meetings, we asked about resident permits and any stickers or anything along that line, and that came back as not being feasible.
Right.
But what we would like to know, first of all, is are something like controlling the times a little more. So first of all, we were thinking, the original proposal was 7 a.m., a ban from 7 a.m. through 3 p.m., Monday through Friday. And then a few of the neighbors talked about, well, they would have to move their cars early.
Sure.
So what we were thinking is 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. feasible, because then because the students come in, we can tell you after detailed study, 8 to 8:15 is when the vast majority of the students, because school starts around 8 a.m.
Yep.
So they all come, streaming in between 8 and 8:15. So if you make it 9, if they leave the cars there, they're all going to hit that window,
Right.
and they should all get ticketed.
Right.
So that's our first suggestion.
Yep.
The next suggestion is to fine tune the time, like to say something like during the school year.
I would say when school is in session.
when school
We could
is
just
in-
like if school is in session, then it
Yes.
would apply. Something
So-
like that is kind of how I would
Yeah, we
think
thought
it.
about that too. I'm not sure if that
Yeah.
can be, like what the definition of in session is, but, if that's something that everyone agrees is a,
Yeah.
definable entity, then yeah, when school is in session, and then,
Yeah.
and then it will,
Okay.
I guess that would eliminate the need for putting the time on it too.
Yeah.
'Cause
it could be something like that.
Yeah.
That could be something.
Just wondering about regulatory signage. Chief Stone probably
Yeah.
cannot respond at this point, but I think it's a good question, because in order to have enforcement, you'd have to have a regulatory sign. So we would just need to make sure that,
Right.
because there are informational signs and then
Right.
regulatory, and the regulatory would be what allows for the ticket. An informational sign would not.
Right.
So we're in favor of a regulatory sign.
That I figured.
Yes.
I figured that's
So
where we were
whatever
going.
whatever it takes, and if putting an actual time, specific times on there is required in order for it to be regulatory,
Right.
then our suggestion is 9 to 3, maybe September through June or something like that.
Yeah.
So something that frees up
Yeah.
the open time for everybody else, but narrows it down, to when the students are likely to be there.
Okay.
So those are our thoughts.
Okay. And you said, and I think you sent us a couple messages about this. You said
Yes.
it seems like it starts like in
Yes.
the March, April timeframe.
It gets a little earlier than that.
Okay.
So you were right in your comment that in the fall, there were about maybe three cars
Yeah.
parked on Robin Hill Road, and it was like that for a little while. But it wasn't as abrupt a leap as just, October to
Right.
May.
Sure.
It was growing all along.
Right.
So it went from 3 cars to 6 to 9. The only time it didn't happen was during the worst of the winter when the snow.
Right.
So I think they got the message, don't park there
Right.
when the snow is there, because the school bus can't get by and plows and everything else.
But you saw,
But-
I think I saw, I'm not sure if it was you or your wife that said it was like, I think you said like 36, 40
Yes.
cars at
It's-
times.
it's- Yes, definitely. So it went in that progression.
Yeah.
And then by March, it was already hitting in the 30s.
Yeah.
And so it was, and then we took some statistics, and it was over 40 cars among the three streets,
Mark Tree,
Mark-
Robin Hill Road, and what's the third one?
Greenview Drive.
Greenview Drive. Okay.
Right. So, yeah, so for the last, since, I guess you could say since March,
Mhm.
April anyway, it's been in that neighborhood of 40.
Okay.
Since the communication was made, which we were anxious to see how that
Yeah,
was going to
yeah,
work.
yeah.
But since that, so it did make and when the new spaces were put in, finally they started being used.
Yep.
Spaces in the high school, not, most of the time, only a handful were being used. Don't know why. You'd think they would have been, but anyway. So it did go down a little bit, but then the average went from about 36 to 40 to maybe 26 in the neighborhood.
Sure, sure.
So to
Still
us,
disruptive,
still,
but
yeah,
not as
still
not as-
disruptive.
Not as many.
So, so that's the numbers part of it.
Okay,
Then, of course, there's our real concern,
right.
which is the speeding,
Yep.
the narrow streets. There was a day that my wife was driving around Robin Hill Road, and one of the kids was turning up in his pickup truck, and the two cars, because of the other cars that were parked there, two cars can't get by each other at the same
Right.
time. So the pickup truck had to back up and get out of the way to let my wife through. Every time something like that happens, and then there was a thing I mentioned in an email about the garbage truck. One of the kids actually almost hit a garbage truck, who was, by the way, trying to maneuver around parked cars to
Right.
collect people's trash and
Right.
recycling. So, every time I see or hear about that, I think, what happens if an ambulance or a fire truck has to
Right.
come in?
Yep.
And they're messing around with kids,
Yep.
trying to get out of their way, or maybe even not even trying to get out of their way, who knows?
Okay. Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
so that's
Okay.
the real aspect of our
Yeah, it's a public safety
of our
issue.
concern.
a
It's,
public
yeah,
safety
it's
issue.
definitely, and just the speeding too.
Yeah.
My wife took some videos, and you could see that, so there were days out there, I was just standing out there with my phone, and when they saw me standing at the tip of the driveway, they were all going very slowly. Then my wife sat on the porch and do it, and they didn't see her. And,
They flew by.
yeah, a lot of them were okay, they were,
Yeah.
they were going all right. But then, oh, man, they had to be doing 40 at least, maybe 45.
Right.
So there are enough of those too. People are walking their dogs and just,
Yep.
oh,
It's a
they're-
neighborhood. It's
Yeah.
a residential neighborhood. Yeah, absolutely.
their fellow students are trying to get to, who are also parking on that road, or trying to get to their cars.
Right.
And the other cars come speeding up behind them, and these other students have to,
Get out of the way.
scurry out of the way. So that goes on and on. I think you get
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, so those are the,
Sure.
those are the reasons why we think at this point, and especially after trying the education and communication in the
Yep.
fall, after trying education and communication as recently as 3 weeks ago,
Yep.
and putting the extra spaces in, it's only gotten marginally
Okay.
better. So we think that it's time
Okay.
to go the regulatory
Yep.
route. And I still remember Damon's quote from that first meeting about the iron fist.
Yeah.
And I hate to see it. I really hate that it's come to that.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I
it's,
think at this point, I think the only thing we'd have to determine is what we can put on a sign, sort of to figure out exactly what the regulatory ask would be to be able to determine that.
right, and to be able to narrow it down to target the problem,
Right.
but also give the neighborhood
Yeah.
as much relief as possible from,
Absolutely.
from any kind of, direct impact of
Sure.
of a ban.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
so that, and if you can give me.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody, yeah, if
Okay,
there's some, yeah.
I guess I'm handing it over.
If yeah, that's fine. If your wife wants to.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Appreciate your.
Thank you.
You coming
Okay,
forward.
so I'm the wife in question, Lois Parker, 290 Martree Road.
Yes.
Unofficially Thorn and Poor Frank's side, but we've been
That's okay.
communicating regularly. I have no doubt that any of those students who park in the neighborhood can talked to you about the crazy woman with the white hair who's constantly trying to slow them down. And to me, going like this is very clear, raising your hand in a stop signal, but they think you're waving to them and they wave back. I totally don't get it. But they're turning around in people's driveways. They don't even use the cul-de-sac or Robin Hill Road to turn around anymore. They're driving all the way into people's driveways. They're making three-point turns in the middle of their road while their fellow students are walking, and multiple people are picking up students at the cul-de-sac. And we can all agree that these aren't experienced, skilled drivers doing this. Just last week, I was walking my dog around 2 o'clock, and they come and go at all different times of day, and 3 of them were leaving the neighborhood. And so it was a risky move, but I walked my dog in the middle of the street to try to deliberately slow them down, and had my hand up to slow them down, and all they did was just swerve around me. So it has become, increasingly difficult and definitely not improved. And one thing I would say is that, we've talked about, I'm sure there are people who think, well, you moved into a neighborhood adjacent to the high school, what did you think was going to happen? Well, the reality, as we've said before, is that we're coming up on 34 years next month, and it's never been a problem until this current school administration offered up our neighborhood as a parking lot. And our neighborhood is not a parking lot. It's a nice, family-friendly residential neighborhood.
Could you sort of elaborate, like, what do you mean that the administration
Well, that's what
is
we
offering?
heard from last year when we suddenly noticed an influx of cars in the neighborhood, and we inquired at one of the police officers who was coming through and ticketing students as to what changed. And we heard, and I even asked one of the students this year who was walking to his car, and I said, did the school tell you to park in this neighborhood? And he said, oh yeah, because there aren't enough spaces at the high school.
So the school, the school told the students to park in your neighborhood?
This is what I've been told by more than one source.
Okay.
So, but the point is that it was never a problem for 32 of our 34 years until recently. And then the one bit of precedent that exists for this is that in the early 2000s, when the high school was being renovated and the parking lot was temporarily unavailable as a result, all of a sudden we had an influx of students parking in our neighborhood for that reason. And we contacted the police at that time, and other neighbors did, and I believe it was Chief George at the time, came down, assessed the situation, immediately said, this isn't appropriate for a neighborhood, and moved them all to Hollis Street. Now, I'm not offering up Hollis Street as an alternative, but I'm just sharing that there is some historical precedent that you may not be aware of, and it was quickly determined at that time that this wasn't appropriate for our neighborhood.
Okay.
One comment I would make as far as gating off the cul-de-sac is that tomorrow, before it hits 98 degrees, I'm hoping to use that route to walk to the high school to vote. So it would be inconvenient, and I realize there are only a couple of elections a year, but it would be kind of crazy for people in the neighborhood to have to drive to the high school to vote when there aren't parking spaces at the high school already. And then the Greenview piece that my husband mentioned was left off of that communication, but in order to cut through Greenview to get to the high school, it's right behind home plate at the baseball field, and I was told that that's a right-of-way on somebody's property. But now that this Mark Tree Road thing has been going on in Robin Hill Road, there are as many as 8 cars parking on Greenview, and so you would have to block that access point off as well if you wanted to prevent students from being able to walk through to get to the high school. So that's an additional issue. And then as recently as today, we're not having as many litter problems as we had last year, but some student apparently didn't think it was cool to have those magnetic stickers that identify them as a student driver, so they're now on my neighbor's mailbox today. So, it may seem minor, but when you add it all up, it's not.
It's disruptive.
Right.
Understood. Thank you. Did you want to come on up? Just give us your name and address, and you can
Sure.
give us your comment here.
Adriano Apostolico, 270 Mark Tree Road. Last year, when we previously discussed this, I was on the fence.
Okay.
And now I am firmly not on the fence
Okay.
anymore. It has become even more chaotic. I didn't grow up in this country. I grew up in a place with no sidewalks, and I don't feel safe walking my kids on the road when the kids are getting out of high school.
Sure.
I understand, like, they're young kids, and, I was
Right.
that age as well. But it is becoming more and more chaotic. I haven't seen very much
Okay.
benefit to these new spaces opening up.
Okay.
And I think locking down the end of the street is not.
Okay.
I moved to the area hoping my kids could walk to high school.
Sure.
I would like them to be able to do that. And honestly, if I was that age,
Yeah.
and I would just park my car there and jump the fence.
I was just trying to think of if there was an option, because the concern that we had heard from residents was closing the road down might be too disruptive. That's what I heard in October. So
Totally, and
I
that
was
was-
trying to think of, is there another option?
Yeah,
That's
no,
kind of what I was.
I was
wondering.
one of those residents
Yeah.
that was saying that'd be too disruptive, and I am, granted, just one of them, but I'm firmly, I would rather the road be shut down.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, the noise, the speeding, it's insane.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I
Thank
really
you. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys. Thank
No,
you.
thank you. Thank you for coming forward. Anyone else in the room have any comments? Sure, come on up and just give us your name and address, and you can make your comment about about this.
My name is Sam Simonian, and I live on 116 Robin Hill Road.
Okay.
I have some really big safety concerns.
Sure.
And I'll give you a few examples that have happened to me over the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
One day in the afternoon, it was about, I would say about maybe 3:30, and I was coming up Robin Hill Road down by the cul-de-sac, and the school bus was coming down. Now, the cars are still parked there, so I backed all the way back down Robin Hill onto Mark Tree to let the bus come down and get through. Another concern was one morning, my neighbor leaves early for work, put his barrels out on the sidewalk. I was leaving to go play golf, and someone parked directly
In front of
in
us.
front of the barrels. So I got out of my car, moved his barrels to the
Sure.
driveway so they'd be picked up.
Yep.
But my main concern is, and I didn't realize how bad it was until about 2 weeks ago, at about between 2:45 and 3 o'clock, down at the corner of Robin Hill and Mark Tree at the cul-de-sac,
Yep.
it's a traffic jam because parents are there to pick up their kids, and it's actually unbelievable, the traffic. I couldn't believe it. And when I sit at my house and I watch, and these are not students, these are now parents, and this is a big safety concern. They come up Robin Hill and they're flying. And now there's still cars parked on one side of Robin Hill.
Sure.
And there's little kids up there playing. And so now the parents don't care. And they're flying through the neighborhood. I think there's got to be, at that time, at least monitored for a while by the police department to slow these parents down, or someone's going to get hurt,
Okay.
you know?
Okay.
So that's my concern.
Understood. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming forward with that.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room? Stacy?
Hi,
Hi.
Stacy Raffi, 20 Arthur Street. I do not live in the neighborhood, and I apologize for the behavior of entitled people in this town. Not all of them, but it's embarrassing that people aren't caring about safety. I sit on the Traffic Advisory Committee. Speed is something we hear about in every single neighborhood. I do think, and you guys know this, I'm super on the strict side. I think it's time to have a conversation with the school. Everybody has their own car now because students are not allowed to drive with anyone under the age of
Yep.
whatever, because they changed the law, and once you get your license, you need to wait 6
can't
months.
carpool.
I get it. However, I don't necessarily think it's appropriate that every student gets to drive to school. And so, yes, there are situations where kids have, single-family kids might have to go home, take care of whatever. I get there's different situations, but at the end of the day, those students who didn't have their license for the first 3 quarters of the year were either taking a bus or getting a ride. I don't think just because automatically it's spring and they get their license, that means license to park. Like, I think we need to have a strong conversation, a hard conversation with the school. This is really a big deal, and I'm concerned. Like, people are not being safe. And, I'm happy to brainstorm with you as well, but I just think just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I'm like a big believer. I honestly think it probably should just be a senior privilege. Like, that's, I don't know. Times have changed, but I think we are not doing ourselves any favors by allowing families not to be good neighbors.
Well, and I think part of this exercise could be, obviously that's the purview of the schools to be able to handle some of those things, but we can certainly say, this is a concern about what's happening, this is what we're going to do about it, and, happy to continue a conversation further to try to facilitate that. I mean, I've certainly been in contact with, I don't want to put her on the spot,
No,
but the
right,
school
right.
committee
Like,
chair
I
is
think
right there. I
there
asked
needs
her,
to be more
I've talked to her
conversation.
about this quite a few times, to try to keep her in the loop about what's happening, just so that, when thinking about those things, and, to your point, maybe, obviously, we don't have jurisdiction to say who can get a light, any of
Absolutely
those
not.
things at a school.
Right.
But, our concern here is the neighborhood and looking at that, but certainly working with the schools and sort of telling them about the situation and making sure that they're a partner in the solution. Because inevitably, if we make these changes and we say you can't park there, it's going to come to the schools
Right.
that as
Of
something
course.
that's going
Right.
to be something that they have to deal with next spring, particularly.
Right. And, I have a hard time, like, the other person in my house who, has more of a left brain will say, it's a public street, they should be able to park there. And I'm like, yes, but, I that argument, I was like, yes, but you don't just
Well,
drive
not
around
every
the-
street has parking on it. You can't park on every street. There's parking restrictions in many places. There's restrictions like, we had people turning into Mudville when the lights came on and
Right.
people were cutting through. We put up restrictions to be able to go through Mudville in certain times of the day. So
I
that
think
way
it's
if
time
people
for
aren't
the
gonna-
restrictions.
And if the restrictions are necessary, sometimes we have to make those restrictions.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacy. Anyone else in the room?
Can I just make one more comment?
Could I circle back to you? I just want to
Sure.
make sure that everybody
Sure.
who wants to talk has a chance to, and then I can come back to you afterwards. There's somebody, Bill Chason, you've been very patient. Could you just give us your name and address and your comments, please?
Yes, Bill Chason, 310 Markree Road. I say here to the last speaker, this is a student problem. I've lived here for 35 years, and this has not been a problem until the last 3 years. And I support a parking ban if that's what we need to do. However, when we discussed this in the fall, I believe that the statement was it has to be, there can be no exceptions. And so if that means I can't park in front of my own house
Yeah.
because students are parking on it, we did not create this problem. The people that live in this neighborhood
I know.
did not create this problem. I've sent you a picture of what this street looks like.
Yep.
On a Saturday, there is a car parked from the circle all the way down to Prospect Street on most Saturdays or
Yep.
any day after 4 o'clock. So the residents did not create this problem. If my landscaper can't park in front of my house, or my tree service guy can't park in front, I had tree service done the other day.
Yep.
They had to park in the circle. They had to park 50, 60 yards away. So if it's gonna be that's a shame.
Yeah.
There are gonna be no exceptions that I can't park in front of my own house
Yep.
because of problems that students have created. That's unfair, but I'll
Yep.
support it.
Yep.
Because this problem has to go away.
Absolutely, and I to your point, if this is sort of when I was mentioned early on, is that there's a trade-off here, so that
Right.
if what's necessary is a parking ban, even if it is during certain hours, if that's feasible, if that's the case, then it would impact residents too, and that's
Right.
which is it's just absolutely, you're totally right. It is unfair, but we can't
So here-
pick and
here's
choose
my
which.
idea.
Yeah,
Here's
sure.
my idea. Put
Yep.
up signs that say no student parking.
That's not regulatory. That's more
I don't care if
informational.
it's regulatory or not.
Okay.
Put up signs that say no student parking.
Okay. We can
And
look.
if people don't get that message, I mean, you sent a message, I'm ready to put the message that you sent in the student newsletter
Mm-hmm.
to the parents. I'm ready to put that on every windshield on my street. Because either some parents didn't read it, or some parents read it and don't give a hoot
Sure.
about it.
Okay.
Because you sent that message out, that's nice, right?
Yep.
But, and if it's not regulatory, fine. I mean, I would love to see I'd love to see these people ticketed.
Yep.
Right, and if you ticket me,
Yep.
I mean, I have to go down to this, I live here, right? Here's my registration. But anyway, I'll support a parking ban. That's the way we have to go. To me, that's
Okay.
draconian, and it's a punishment for the residents who have done nothing
It
to
is.
deserve these restrictions.
Right.
So, I mean, it would be nice if we could think of a way to get the students only
Yep.
the clear message to not park in this neighborhood. I don't know how we do that, but
I think to your point, I think we had hoped that could be taking place, and for whatever reason, that message was not
yeah.
heard by them.
Right.
So I
And I'll tell
understand.
you, we created open spaces over in the high school. I can see them every day from in front of my house. They're not being used because these students don't want to go through the hassle of trying to get out of the parking lot.
Okay.
There's 5 to 6, 7 open spaces every single day over there.
Well, and I
Because
think
they don't want to put up with the traffic jam getting out of the parking lot. It's easy to fly down Mark 3 Road to Prospect Street. You're out of here in 2 minutes.
Yep.
As opposed to getting in that parking lot and getting out on Hall Street. Why can't we have parking on Hall Street? Because it's not safe. There's no parking restriction on Hall Street. Have them park in front of the high school.
we have to we'll explore every option that we can to try to get a better solution. But Bill, thank you for your
because
comments. Appreciate
This is
it.
going to go away in 5 days, right? And I bet you it doesn't all go away in 5 days for the same reason that kids
Yep.
don't want to deal with the hassle of getting out of the parking lot.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
But we got to have a plan before the fall because
Yes.
despite the fact that it wasn't bad in the fall, it was bad enough for us to have it on your
This board is prepared to take action that's reasonable to manage it. That's obviously to be as least disruptive as possible, but at the same time solve the problem.
Right, and I don't want you to take my comments as I'm trying to roadblock this, because I'm on board with that parking ban if we need to.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I feel it's really
Yep.
punishing the people that live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. I see, is that Walter? Do you have your hand raised? If you could just give us your name and address and your
Yes.
comments.
Yes, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, my name is Walter Radonis. I live at 101 Robin Hill Road.
Okay.
I've been there for 27 years. Before that, I lived at 330 Mount Tree Road, right at the cul-de-sac. And that was for 5 years. So I've been in the neighborhood for 32 years. All my neighbors are correct in that this has not occurred until the past couple years. It's always been a quiet street.
Mm-hmm.
The major problem I see is Mount Tree Road does not have any sidewalks. Everybody knows that. It's just a whatever show you want to call it, with cars and people walking dogs and students, and it's very dangerous. So I think it's absurd that our neighborhood has become a parking lot for the school.
Mm-hmm.
The gate idea is very bad.
Okay.
For all these years, I've been walking through that, around the high school to get some exercise. Everybody else does that too. Everybody walks their dogs. It's part of the neighborhood. I had a question about John Parker's proposal to restrict parking during certain hours. I don't really understand what those hours are. Are they 9 to 3?
He was suggesting, his suggestion was 9 to 3. This board hasn't taken anything, and we're not sure what a reasonable, what we can do. But what he had suggested was a 9 to 3 restriction. That way, people who could, as I understand it, if like somebody was like who got up, could get their car moved before it was later, and then kids would be there. Because they're parking at 8:15, they would be there and leaving their cars between 9 and 3, and so it would take care of the window when kids were putting their cars there. That's how I understood it.
Yeah, it was, was want me to come up?
Well, we just,
no.
it's like we just wanted to clarify, I think.
Yeah, that's mostly.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Walter.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering if maybe an 8 to 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. might work, because what that would do is it would prevent the students from parking in the morning, and then all the contractors and whatever our friends and neighbors
about it.
who park and drop by on the street
Yep.
would not be disrupted. So instead of having most of the day restrictive,
We'll talk about this thing.
just make it an hour or 2 in the morning.
Okay,
Then the neighbors, then the residents would not be inconvenienced either.
okay. All right.
Okay,
That-
and my last thing
yes.
is, when I was in high school, I went to a school where only seniors could have parking permits for the parking lot.
Yep.
And there were no other places to park in the neighborhood because it's signed, that, you know, the city did put up signs. So I really suggest that to the school, which is not a member, is not participating in this, but I understand that the school now has assigned parking spots, which maybe they didn't have in the past, and that is creating one of the problems, because if on any given day 20 students aren't there for whatever particular reasons, there are 20 spots that are not being utilized at the high school. How they deal with that, I don't know, but I think in the past they probably were not assigned. So I just want to offer that up as well as
Okay.
something maybe you could suggest that the school take a look at.
Okay. Yep, and that's their,
Okay, Jen.
that's their place
Yes.
to make those kinds of decisions, but I think, you know, we have someone from the school committee here who's listening intently, and hearing
Okay,
these
good.
suggestions, so we appreciate you coming forward.
Thank you, board, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Walter. So, the gentleman behind you actually
I
raises.
asked him if he minds if I make a.
Okay, come on up, we're going back around.
I'm responding directly to.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, yeah, absolutely. You know, he suggested 7 to 9. I was just sort of relaying what you had suggested as an option, because
Right.
it
Oh,
seemed like
sure,
what Walter
yeah.
was asking about.
So, yeah, no, as you said, nothing's carved in stone. We're here to figure out
We're
what's
here
going
to
to work.
talk about what options.
So the first thing that I wanted to say, we've heard the argument, it's a public road.
Yeah.
And I know you addressed it very well, but I just want to reiterate, yeah, it's a public road, but it doesn't mean that it's safe or appropriate for these things to happen.
Right.
So public road is just a bad argument. The other thing, I just wanted, in case Bill didn't hear what you said, Tina, about regulatory versus informational. Regulatory means that they can ticket. I'm in favor of that. Informational is good. Put up as much information as we think might help the situation.
Yeah.
But regulatory, I feel, is necessary.
Sure.
So they can get ticketed as often as they need to get the message. Because maybe that's what'll give them the message. And then the third thing was, I forget the third thing. It was
The 7 to 9
Thank
a.m.,
you.
his suggestion.
Yes. So Walter actually just gave me an idea.
Yeah.
So first, the 7 to 9, I can tell you now, we've been trying to give everybody here the big picture.
Yeah.
But part of the smaller picture is that this same phenomenon of speeding in and out of the neighborhood occurs at lunchtime, because the students can leave to go to lunch. And an awful lot of them,
Okay, that
in
come
my
back. and-
opinion, do. So they come back in the afternoon. If they can't park there in the morning, they're
Maybe
gonna
what's the saying, they won't come back
go
to
to
lunch.
lunch and just come back.
That's
So
fair.
maybe a second window, maybe one 7 to 9, and then one.
Probably going to be easier to
one-
have a single window, but, you know,
Yes,
signs are only
that's what
so
I'm-
big.
That's what I'm thinking is,
Yeah.
and now it's starting to get complicated. But I'm pretty
That's a good point.
confident
Thank
that
you.
if there was only a small window in the morning, that, you know, they're gonna come speeding in at lunch, after lunch.
Got it.
And just, you know, park
Okay.
there the way they do today.
Okay.
I mean, the neighborhood, maybe half of them clear out to go to lunch. And
Yes.
on top of that, what we've heard and what we've witnessed, they speed even more at lunchtime because they don't have much time.
Sure.
So they fly out of the neighborhood, they go eat, and then they fly back so that they can get back in time for their next class.
Right. Okay.
So that's that's doubly bad.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
Okay.
okay. so
Thank you
those are my
for clarifying. I
responses.
appreciate it. Thank you. And,
Can I add one thing, please?
yeah, go ahead, Walter.
Okay, thank you. I like John's idea. I also feel that if we just restricted 7 to 9, the kids, maybe are not going to be coming back to the neighborhood in the afternoon because they didn't park there initially in the morning. So wherever they parked in the morning, they might be apt to just go back to that location. And that location would not be Mott Tree Road or Robin Hill or Greenview.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And then
Thanks.
one more comment here, and then I'd like to hear from the board. You just give your name and address again.
Sam Simonian, 116 Robin Hill Road.
Thank you, Sam.
I remembered last fall when we had the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I can't recall who brought it up, but the question was asked, who told you you could park on these streets?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was the principal.
Okay.
Okay? Now, the board was, I don't know who on the board was going to look into talking to the principal to let the students know that they shouldn't be parking there.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remembered that.
Okay.
So that's where that came from.
Gotcha.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. All right.
Can I just make one more quick comment?
Sure, Lois.
I promise I'll. be
What the heck?
quick,
It's okay.
But
Just make sure you come to the microphone because people at home can't always hear you.
Lois Parker, 290 Mark Tree Road. Just tacking on to what my neighbor Sam just said. This is what I've asked when I've reached out to Frank, is that the neighborhood should be told the same thing that the school is telling the students, and it doesn't feel like we're getting that information ever, because we can see a visible change. And as my husband mentioned, there was nothing going on over the winter for the most part. It was gradually increasing over the fall. And I did email Frank when we had our first snowstorm forecast, and he said he would pass that on, because obviously we don't want cars parked in the neighborhood when there's snow. Well, we didn't, I mean, granted, there was snow all winter long, and we didn't see any cars parked in the neighborhood all winter long, and it was great. Exactly, where were they?
Right.
All of a sudden, the middle of March, like right after that St. Patrick's Day weekend, we got up one morning and there were 15 cars on our street, where there hadn't been cars there for months. So clearly someone said something to someone. And that was what I asked Frank at the time, is can you find out what the school is telling these students that's bringing them to the neighborhood? And we never really found out that information, but clearly there's somebody at the schools sending them to this neighborhood to park, and that's what you're hearing that so many people are frustrated about.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, I'm going to, we've heard from a number of people, a number of frustrations, so I'm interested to hear comments from the board. Tina, what are your thoughts hearing from the residents?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about public ways, we talk about all road users. Everybody pays taxes to maintain public ways, and that isn't determined based on whether you drive a car, ride a bike, or walk. So I agree with those who feel public ways should be safe for all. I think that's an understanding that this board has had for some time, and I don't really feel that that's a part of the conversation, so I'll put that out on the table. I think that what we have here is a lack of separation of use. We have residents who are living their residential lives. We have students who are commuting to school by car. We have people who are walking and as a part of their exercise, as a part of their walking their dogs, as a part of their own commuting, whatever. We have no separation on Mark Tree Road, on Robin Hill Road, and Greenview. We have no separation, and so there's conflict because we have too much use. So for me, it feels fairly straightforward in terms of defining the problem. The solutions may be harder, but it's policy, education, enforcement. Those are always our options when it comes to conflict on roads, always. Policy, education, enforcement. It sounds like education has failed. I think that's fair to say. That was what we led with in the fall. Let's try education, and it sounds like that has been completely unsuccessful. So I'm going to remove education from a part of the solution at this point in time, and we're left with policy and enforcement. I am concerned that if it's a policy decision that the town can't make, right? We can't adopt or implement policy that affects the behaviors and choices of the public school students. That's not our purview. We don't really have policy choices that, as a town, we can make on behalf of the select board. But I think we can ask for partners on the school side
Yeah.
and also set expectations that we have policy change.
Yeah.
Because the flip is if we don't have policy, we're left only with enforcement now. And enforcement puts the burden entirely on the town. It puts the burden entirely on the police. And maybe that's where we end up. But it doesn't seem to be a well-rounded solution if we're not addressing policy. Policy like we've heard from folks who are familiar with the way parking has changed on Mark Tree and Robin Hill and Greenview over the years. 3 years ago, we did not have this issue. And so something has changed policy-wise. So is it the assigned parking spots? I don't know. That's not our role. It sounds plausible, but that's not our role to determine that. Is it the senior privilege question, why juniors have the ability to drive? I don't know. That's not our purview to figure out.
Yep.
Is it the leaving at lunch, contributing to the safety concerns and the conflict on road users? Maybe. But again, we need the partner on the school side.
Yep.
So what I would suggest is that we commit to ask for a commitment from the schools to address a lot of what we're hearing through policy, and that we match it with the necessary enforcement. There are regulatory signs. You could have a regulatory sign that says 1 hour parking only, Monday through Friday, period.
Yeah.
That allows people, you could have some regulatory sign addressing a parking or no parking restriction on these roads. I think, again, that puts the burden on the police to enforce something that could be addressed pretty well, perhaps, by policy. So that's what I would propose, that we make a commitment to partnering with the schools with an expectation of policy change, and that we match the policy changes with enforcement where it needs to be.
Okay.
I'm concerned that the school year is bad and that it's not over yet. I know Chief Stone said 3 weeks, but I think it's actually more like 5, Sarah, to the last day of school.
But the seniors are done this week, so then their spaces are open.
Yeah, so if that's
But
how they use it, or they
We
maintain
hope, but I think,
assigned.
one of the points that's been made is that it sounds like a lot of people are using Mark Tree because it's a fast way to avoid the parking lot, whether parents are picking up or whether students might be doing that just simply because it's easier. So there's a breakdown on that side as well. So, I mean, even if those spots open up for senior parking, that doesn't necessarily mean people that are going to use it. So, it might be less, it might not be 40 cars, it might be 15, but that doesn't mean, based on some of the behavior I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like it's going to go away.
Yeah, I would like to offer immediate relief. I don't think that there's immediate relief here, particularly if we're talking about policy and enforcement, and enforcement would need to have that regulatory piece behind it, signage behind it. I will just end by saying, we're about to hear from the Climate Action Plan, about an update on the Climate Action Plan, and so I'll put all my cards on the table and say that, anything that we do to disincentivize driving to school and encourage other modes of transportation is for the benefit of the future of Holliston. And so I'm not looking to make it easier in any way for parking to happen on Mark Tree, Robin Hill, and Greenview. I think we absolutely should be disincentivizing that. So policy and enforcement.
Okay. Damon?
Tina, that was very well articulated. I agree with you on several of your points. I will say I tend towards more parsimonious solutions. So I am
What does that mean?
Smaller, more succinct, less complicated.
Yep.
The easier, the better.
Yep.
I do think that enforcement is part of the equation if we can't get to it. I know the chair of the school committee is here. I agree with the idea of partnering with the school committee on this. I think that is a really good place where we can find a good solution. For my bit, almost every school area I've lived in, parking has been a privilege that has been attributed to the seniors only. I think it's a supply-side demand problem. If something is available, people avail themselves of it. And so if you decrease the supply, sometimes you can make things a little bit better. But that is definitely not my purview, something to talk about, I think, in conjunction with the school committee. Definitely their area of expertise. When it comes to the enforcement bit, I do think that safety is a very real concern. I have children. I have been in places where cars speed by very quickly, also driven by other older children. And I think that this is something that we shouldn't overlook. So I'm quite happy to engage in both of those facets that you mentioned, although I do hope, again, for a simple answer is probably the better one here.
Okay.
Yep.
I think, you know, I'm kind of, you know, I think we tried education. I'm kind of in the frame that, you know, we tried education. I was hopeful that education would work, and it did not seem to work. So I think, you know, education is still going to have to be a component of any solution, because there still needs to be information that's passed out, whether it's signage, whatever, but there also needs to be, you know, that commitment from the school. So I think my proposal here is that, you know, we need to have, like, for our next meeting, we should have a, what, you know, does it make sense, like 9 to 3? Is it a, you know, 2 hour or 1 hour parking only, something like that? Hearing from having the police, like, what is enforceable that's reasonable? Because, I mean, you know, obviously 1 hour is there, but you basically have to have almost a police officer, like, in that neighborhood for the whole time. And I want to be fair to them here when there's other things going on. We don't want to lose sight of that as well. And then, so I, you know, what is a proposal that they can come up with that they is enforceable? And, you know, it might have to be like 9 to 3. That's probably a more reasonable thing. If after 9 o'clock someone's there, they get ticketed. That's it. But, you know, what is reasonable for them? And then on the other side of it too is that, you know, I'll throw out there to, you know, for May 28th, I know the school committee has a meeting on May 28th. You know, I'm willing to come to that meeting and talk about it. And sort of say, like, hey, this is an issue, we want to partner with you, we want a solution, and you need to be part of this solution here, because, you know, if we restrict parking, it's going to fall on the schools to fix it, or to have something that's policy, you know, whatever it is. I don't know what that looks like. It's going to wind up being pushed into on their plate regardless. So we want to make sure that we're, you know, working with them and trying to understand what that problem looks like and things like that, so that they can, we can partner with them on any long-term solution.
I'll introduce 2 words: moratorium and pilot. I think that a moratorium is something that can be short-acting and can go into effect immediately.
Sure.
A moratorium can be something that helps you bridge to get to a permanent solution, and a pilot can be a trying out of something to see if it works. So I think when we have the conversations, hopefully with the schools, certainly with the police, that we are considering things like also a moratorium. I think that gets us perhaps immediate relief. Or builds the bridge, and then piloting, that we can be open to trying out some solutions that perhaps don't end up being permanent, but they're attempts to address the problem. So I'll just introduce those 2 words.
No, and I think those are good. So I would expect that at our next meeting, we would have a proposal from the police that's enforceable, because I think enforcement is kind of the road we have to go. What is something that they can enforce? What is reasonable? And I don't want to put them on the spot here, but I would, you know, we talked about a gate, and it doesn't seem like people are interested in that. I recognize there's trade-offs no matter what we propose here, but I also want to make sure that we're fair. We don't want to put something in place that can't be enforced. I mean, we talked about that with speeds on the trails earlier. It doesn't make sense to do so. The whole point is to put some teeth behind the change. We need to make sure that we can do that. That it's actionable. So that's my expectations. That's what I'm calling. And if the board is in agreement, we can, for the next meeting, we expect something from the police that what is reasonable, what they can do, and then we can take action at that.
Ben, if you're not able to make, if this item is able to be added to the school's agenda for the 28th, it may not be, but if it is, I'm available as well to go. I'm going to confirm that right now. But select board representation to speak to this, sure.
So yeah, I'll work with to be reasonable, because I know the school committee meetings can be jam-packed, but I throw it out there as an option, because I'd love to be able to, no other purpose than to get something up. But I see Chief Stone, the police chief's hand is raised, and since we want to put him on the spot at some point, I didn't want to put you on the spot to ask you, but if you have something to chime in with, we'd love to hear from you.
No problem at all. I just want to be clear, because I think the police made recommendations last fall to make no parking, and that was not adopted by the board based on feedback from the residents. So my recommendation would be the same. You know, I think no parking. So I don't want to push it back onto the board or push it onto the schools, but whatever's implemented by the board or what the school votes on, we can enforce. We just need the teeth to enforce whatever's out there.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So my recommendation would be the same, just make it no parking. I just don't want to push the problem onto another neighborhood, which I think by doing that, you may open the door for that.
Like the students would park somewhere else.
Yeah, but then that would get to
no parking.
Yeah.
and they're receiving tickets every day, you know,
Yeah.
now that becomes a problem on, you know, Hollis Street or Highland Street or,
Right.
you know, adjacent neighborhoods. And I wouldn't want to see that.
Yes, and that's why I think that's why the importance of the partnership with the schools to try to develop solutions, and we could make sure that it's enforceable on the other side, that it won't be a problem anymore, and then the schools can help us with figuring out what solutions are available to them. You know, when people talk about Hollis Street, I think, like I was looking on a map, you know, there's granite curbing, at least on one side, so there's certainly, I don't know if that was the case 25 years ago, so there might have been a little bit more flexibility in that space. But we can talk about other options and see what's available to all of us to try to come up with a solution. So, yeah, all right, you know, I know that the police are gonna say no parking, but I'd like to see if there's a way that a restricted time frame is feasible, or does it have to be a blanket no parking? That's kind of what I want to get to, but we can do that. Do you want to speak to that, or Chief, or are you stand still, Brace?
Yeah, I mean, like, whatever brings relief, obviously, to the neighborhood and gets us through kind of the school year. I think the major solution to this comes over the summertime.
Yep.
Like you said, to Tina's point and to the board's point, I think partnering with the schools and working together.
It's essential.
I do think, you know, I said 3 weeks early, I think that's my kid's school, you know, quite early. You know, for the 5 weeks remaining,
Yeah.
I don't know if, I mean, a time thing would be fine, 9 to 3, I don't know, you know, implementing that, changing the rules and regs, getting the signs installed and then actually enforcing them, how long that process
Yeah.
would take realistically is probably gonna bring us to the end of the school year.
Okay. Okay, I think.
But we're happy to help, I mean,
Okay.
our SRO is up there almost daily,
Okay.
you know, trying to address the issues and trying to, you know, work with the schools, so
Yep.
we are fully supportive of trying to find a solution.
Excellent, okay. Okay.
Want to continue the hearing?
Yeah, I think we'll continue the hearing, and then we will make a firm decision on at our next meeting, which is, I think, the 8th, I believe. And in the meantime, I'll work with the schools to see if there's a time that we can either do in a public meeting, or we can have a side meeting of some kind. We can do either one, whatever works for people to do. So we appreciate everybody coming. We want to get a solution for you and want to make sure that it's workable for everybody and also enforceable at the same time. So thank you. We appreciate your patience, and we'll get a solution coming.
All right, take care.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you
We
all.
appreciate being heard.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for coming forward. All right. Pardon me, I just wanted to open my drink because my throat is a little dry. Okay, so next, we wanted to just have a brief discussion about the school committee vacancy. According to our bylaws, there is when there is an open seat on an elected board, the school committee, the elected board and the select board together make the appointment. And the school committee chair, who's here again, had informed us that there was a vacancy to be filled, and in light of the election, we've been waiting until election time. The election is tomorrow, to work towards appointing that seat. And a couple proposals that I'd like to sort of throw out there. Again, because the school committee is meeting on the 28th, they certainly have not opined on this issue. However, you know, would be interested to hear sort of their any feedback that they have at this time. But a couple things I'd like to have a press release for Wednesday that says there is an open seat in the school committee. Please submit letters of interest and a resume. I would ask if this is okay with you, Sarah, to be submitted to the town manager, and he can collect the those letters of interest and the resumes to be looked at a given time. I think I would probably say that we should have it at least open until May 29th, which is the day after your meeting, which is a Friday. So like May 29th at like 4 p.m. or something like that, that's my proposal here. And if somebody wants something different, that's fine. Certainly if we don't get a lot of resumes, we can extend it. Like if nobody applies, we could extend the time. That's not, that doesn't mean we can't do that. But at least giving a window to have a discussion. One of the things, so we had, last year we had an appointment for a library trustee And there were, I think, 5 or 6 candidates. And the libraries looked at their candidates and then brought one candidate forward to the select board. And I think there's, I think one of the things that I think was, we had not agreed or talked about a process there, and I think that was a mistake. We should have had more of a conversation between the boards to sort of say, like, hey, what's reasonable, what makes sense? Because on the one hand, I think it's very difficult for 8 or 9 people to get in a room and vet multiple candidates. So I think there needs to be some kind of a process to sort of get a larger pool to a smaller pool that, several people can discuss, but making sure that that's a fair process. Whether it's, a couple members from each board get together, go through, see what makes sense, what works. And, but then also being able to bring several candidates as appropriate to the full group, because I think there should be some discussion, and I don't think it should be completely decided before we walk in the door. So that's kind of my 2 cents. I'll stop talking. I wanted to hear from you guys here, and if Sarah, if you have any comments, you're welcome to come join us after we sort of have our comments. So, Tina, would you have any comments here?
Everything you flesh out there makes sense to me. The working group for the school building committee it mirrors this in a way. You've got a small group of people who are doing a lot of screening and vetting, and so, not vetting, but a lot of screening and prep, and we'll present to each board. So the idea of a smaller group, so we are 3 + 6 is 9. Having all 9 members would be cumbersome and probably slow the process down for the better of nothing.
Yeah.
We know the school committee is anxious to have that vacancy filled so they can get on with their work. We're anxious to move it off of our plate for the similar reasons. So I agree with it. What's the word I'm looking for? Streamlined or abbreviated interview process. I do like the idea of more than one candidate being presented for consideration.
Yeah.
Whether the school committee wants to have all 6 members interview, or they want to do something similar where they get presented with a few and we get presented with the same few. I'm not sure how that looks, but.
And I think we can give them a chance to, we can sort of say, like, this is where we're coming from, and then when they get to their May 28th meeting, they can have that discussion as a committee to sort of decide what makes sense for them too.
Yeah, okay.
With that, but, yeah.
The timeline works, the 20th through the 29th, to keep it open for appointment, for letters of interest. That works perfectly well. So.
And I mean, I would say, I'm saying it probably, we've done this in the past, coming to the select board meeting. We have a meeting, I think our next meeting would be in the 8th of June, is that correct?
Yes.
So the goal would try to be having something around on that meeting, if not another time, if necessary, if we have to move things around to make sure that we can get everybody in the same room to be able to act on that. But that's kind of the rough timeline that I was thinking.
One variation that we sort of saw with the Library Board of Trustees, which could apply here, is if the school committee wants to do the interviewing, and it's cumbersome to get select board representation, or we feel that that's not the direction that we're looking to go in, the ability to watch the videos gives us the same access to the candidate.
Sure.
So
they didn't record, library didn't record there.
They did, but they came to us with their recommendation before they were posted. There was a delay. It wasn't possible.
Okay, I gotcha.
They voted on their.
I thought they didn't record it.
No, they voted on the recommendation before we'd had a chance to view the videos and give our feedback. But I think that's a variation that works.
Okay.
If being in the room for the actual interviews is cumbersome.
Yeah. So. Okay. Damon, anything to?
I like the basic idea of the streamlining. I personally would like to see the letters of interest of everyone, et cetera, even if there is a streamlined process that we'll figure out some way to provide input that is not a consultative process.
Yeah.
If we see any candidates that we think, oh, this is a remarkable person, or they have a skill that maybe is being undervalued or underrepresented. I think that I agree with Tina that I would like, if we're not going to be at the interviews, I'd like to see the interviews for certain. I think there's a lot in presentation style. As far as the dates go, I'm okay with that level of speed as long as we dot all the i's and we have all the information.
Yeah, and as long as we give enough time for people to be able to apply. I mean, we want to make sure. I mean, I assume usually school committee has relative interest.
Mm-hmm.
There is a contested race here for at the election tomorrow. So my expectation would be that people would be interested and apply for it for such a position. Sarah, did you want to say anything? I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't have to if you don't want to, but.
No, I'll just take this back.
Okay.
Talk about it on our
Okay.
next meeting.
And we can, and you can, you know, if you need me to reflect or be a part of the 28th meeting to talk about it, I'm happy to do so.
But I think the timeline is okay.
Okay.
Is it too tight, or like?
Well, we have a,
You reorg
on June 11th.
Okay.
So if we could fill the seat. by
before then?
that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so we could, I mean, with the goal would be, the select board meeting would be on June 8th, so we would look to try to do it at that time. If the, you know, if we can get everything together. Okay. All right, I think we're good. So Frank, if we can put out a press release that says, you know, on
For
Wednesday after the
Yep.
election, that says, you know, this is open, please send letters of interest and a resume to the town manager that you're interested in this seat. It's a one-year seat, making sure that we indicate that, and that we'd want to have those applications before the 29th, like the end of close of business on May 29th, and then make sure that everybody on both committees has a chance to see all of the candidates, and then we can, you know, see how we want to go forward with a sort of a winnowing down process of some kind, if it's an open meeting with, you know, you doing it and one of us goes to your meeting, and something like that could be a process. But we can, you can talk about that with your committee on the 28th. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, moving on, we're on to public comment. I know there's a few. I know, Barb, did you want to come up and make your public comment at this time?
Yes.
We-
I have one related to the town meeting, and then I have a question about.
Sure,
the school
come on up,
committee.
yeah, come on up and just name and address for
Okay.
those of you who don't know you,
Yep.
and then you can go ahead.
My name is Barb Warby, and my address is 83 Rolling Meadow Drive. So I had a question for the town moderator, Michelle, if she's still on the call.
Yep, she
Yep.
is. She is.
Okay, so Pooja knew that, you know, as a non-voting resident, she was able to come up and speak, and that's because I think that she had, you know, partnered with the select board on making that clear and making sure that that was something that was available, and that's, and then the, you know, the town, I think, kind of made that really clear last year or something like that. So anyway, she knew. But how would other non-voting residents know that? And is there a way to be more explicit about that, especially for people that are new to the town or aren't quite sure how that works? I just want to make sure that it's like really, you know, clear and available, and not just like, well, they can, because I mean, you know, you had said like people can definitely walk up just like anybody else, but people may not know that they can. So I was wondering if we could be more explicit about it or put that somewhere, or we could have a talk about that. So that's one
Okay.
thing.
I think I would say, and Michelle can speak to this as well, but one of the things that goes into the warrant packet is sort of like rules and things that go into how town meeting works. And we can work with the moderator to make sure there's language, if that's where, you know, that's what she's saying, that there's language in there that says that specifically that, you know, anyone can speak at the, you know, at discretion of the moderator, including non-voting residents, something to that effect. Or so, I don't know exactly what the language is. So
Yeah.
I know I'm not, but we can work with the moderator on that. Michelle, does that seem?
That is true, and also with the consent of town meeting, so town meeting could also vote to let a non-voter speak. It's not just the moderator. But I had a question, are you talking about people who come to town meeting and when they're there, they don't know they can speak, or residents who don't come to town meeting because they think they won't be able to speak?
It's both. Yeah, just because, like, I do think that it's challenging. This is a broader issue, but like it's kind of challenging in town to sort of know all the things and like know what town meeting is. And I meet new people all the time who are new to the town, and they're like, "What's town meeting and what's the election?" And so if it's hard to do that, if you speak English, if you grew up in this country, then it's like extra hard to do it if those things aren't available to you or it's not familiar to you. So I think I just want to make sure that it's like we're not only like making it a thing that we say we will do, but that we make it really, that we make sure that it's known, explicit, that we're
Understood.
reaching out, that we're being, like as just, I don't know. And so this may be a bigger issue for not just non-voters, but people in general, but especially for them.
I would argue too
That's what I was
that
asking.
I would argue too that we have work to do just to educate people on what town meeting is and how it works.
Yeah.
As someone who's involved in it, I'm always finding out new things about it, and I think that we have work to do for people who are not me sitting at the front of the room to make sure that they understand what it's about, and I can only imagine how it must feel for someone who also has a language barrier as well. And so your point is a good one, and I think we have work to do specifically to who can speak, but also I think in general on educating people on what town meeting is and how it works.
Yeah. It's super intimidating to speak at town meeting, especially
It
as
is.
it gets later and the crowd gets more
More
angry.
raucous. I understand.
Because they don't like that people are talking about things when they just want to go home.
Understood. Okay. And then your second comment.
Yes, and there was just a question about the appointment for the school committee. So
Yes.
I know that that's typically an elected position, right?
Correct.
And this is an appointment just because it's like part of a term.
Yes.
So can I be clear on, like, are people who are not voters but residents, such as Pooja, be able to apply for that?
No.
No. Okay.
Because the law says that you have to be a registered voter to serve on an elected board.
Got
The
it.
appointment
Even
process
if
wouldn't
it's-
usurp
Even
that.
if it's an appointment,
because it's a special appointment. It's not like
Right.
a typical appointment.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the typical appointment would be like the zoning board of appeals, where it's an appointment process and that is the only means by where somebody's put on
Right.
that, versus this, which is normally an elected position and we're just filling it until the termination of the term.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for
Thank you for your
clarifying.
question, Barb.
Yep.
Anyone else in the room have public comment? All right, I see 2 hands raised. 3, excuse me. Sorry, Dr. Tyler, your background blocked your hand. CG, I believe that's Chinmaya, if I remember correctly. If you want to give us your name and address and your comment.
Chinmaya Gogineni, 425 Underwood Street, and I need to come up with a new nickname.
I happen to know you, so that's how I know that.
No, that was just a joke. I am going to talk about the same 2 topics that Bart touched on, but with a different perspective. Not necessarily against, but like with a different perspective. So let's start with the town meeting. 2 aspects to that. One, I think all of the folks that spoke about it spoke very informally and eloquently about how it's an issue of knowledge and information for people. I think there is also a bigger problem that we are ignoring, which is the intimidation or being intimidated aspect. The town meeting has a very challenging effect on people's mental comfort in that room. There is a very adversarial kind of situation that's created in the town meeting, which is unfortunate, but like I think it happens. And I think it is upon the town to create a welcoming and safe space for all people that want to participate in the discussion, because come on, let's be real, everything that's happening in that room has a daily impact on all of these people.
Sure.
I think it is upon the town and its representatives to make sure it's very obviously, visibly clear, front and center, that anybody that wants to be in the room and speak about issues that are going to impact their day-to-day life, their children and their family's safety and comfort, need to be able to feel welcome to speak, not afraid that there will be, like we have to announce our names and addresses. There's a safety issue that's present there as well. It's not unknown in this town for people to be intimidated when there is a very controversial opinion or disagreed, diverse opinion. So I think it's upon the town to make sure we create that safe space for speaking.
Okay.
I understand there's an information and knowledge aspect that needs to be addressed as well, as far as like how the town meeting proceedings happen, what's legal, what's not, what's allowed, what's not. There's definitely a space that needs to be addressed. But this, I think, is even more critical and important to be addressed because it affects a lot more people than just the absence of knowledge. People who are interested and will participate in the town proceedings will figure it out. Talking to people, right? Like I think, and yes, that doesn't mean we shouldn't make that information easily accessible and available. But that's also a problem that needs to be addressed. But like this, I think, is a bigger problem that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
So that's all I have to say about that. The second topic was about the school committee appointment. I'm just curious. There are 3 people participating in the election.
Yes.
They're going to be voted for or against in the election.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 full-term positions and 1 leftover term position.
Yes.
Why wouldn't we just save time, energy, and effort from everybody? We already talked about how getting all these 9 important people in the same room and getting to look at the candidates is a hard challenge. Why are we just not listening to the town people? If we set a minimum bar for the third candidate and say, if they get at least these many votes, I mean, that is how many people in the town think that they belong on the school committee. Now, shouldn't that speak louder than 9 elected people sitting in a room listening to listening to, whatever the talking points are brought up? Like it's a more performative approach, whereas these people all 3 of them have demonstrated an interest, have come out with what they have as plans for if they're on the school committee. All of their actions are already advertised and published, and for everyone to visibly see. So why wouldn't we just save time, energy, and effort from everybody? And whoever ends up being the third person gets the one-year term. Why wouldn't we look at that? That seems like a very easily available solution instead of waiting till like the next few meetings of May and June and then appointing them. We've heard the school committee talk about there being a stacked agenda and a very critical set of decisions that need to be made, and time is of essence. So why wouldn't we just choose the third person? That's the second point I wanted to make and put forth to you folks to think about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just to sort of address that point, if we were having this conversation if that person had resigned, say, in January, then there would be a third person, another term put on the ballot for a 1-year term. There would be a third position put on the ballot, and that would have been the solution there. But I would also point out that if we were having this conversation in October, we certainly could use some of those kinds of precedents of people being voted or not voted. But the reality is that we're talking about this in this context because of the proximity to the election. And, further, every other appointment that this board has made since I've been on the board has undergone this process, and we've talked to the clerk, and we need to have it open for a period of time. We need to solicit people who are available for appointment to the position, because that's the precedent that we've set, and that's what the law also tells us we have to do. So I hear your point, and that certainly might wind up being the solution. And I think the timeline we're talking about is pretty tight, regardless, to be able to fill that position. So I think we're talking about at our next meeting, which is June 8th, of having that appointment. So that's the reality of it, that we're trying to get to that point, and it might wind up being that third person. I mean, that might wind up being the solution that takes place. So.
Yeah, thank you for indulging my message.
No, I appreciate the question. Thank you very much for asking, Chinmay. I appreciate it. Pooja, you have your hand up. You can just give us your name and address, and if you could just give us your comments.
Yeah, hi, this is Pooja, 105 Overlook Drive. I think I just wanted to chime in where Bob made a comment right about people able to speak. So when I was working with Damon about the whole home rule petition, during that we did learn that non-voting residents can actually come and talk. And I think at that time, they were keeping honest, we did say that it will be added when moderator is just introducing the meeting, that hey guys, if a moderator acknowledges, people can come and talk. I think we just need to find that verbiage because it's already in the laws, right? And they might
Correct.
were
Yeah,
looking through it
correct.
and we-
That's right, Pooja. And then part of that also, you're brushing up against, I think, a larger thing. We probably need to work, Michelle is on the line, obviously, but it'd probably be a good idea for us to have basically a preamble for people who are just new to town meeting about, hey, what it's like, who can talk, what's the process, something really quick. But there are enough new faces and new people in that meeting who, honestly, even folks who've been there a few times who might not know what the process are. And I believe that you're absolutely right. We should just give folks a heads up at the beginning of the meeting to make them feel comfortable and make them aware what their privileges are during the meeting.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what they meant. Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. I see Liz Tyler, I see your hand raised. If you can unmute yourself and if you can give us your comment.
Dr. Liz Tyler, 17 New Orleans Street. I'm going to change the topic completely.
Yep.
First of all, I want to apologize to all of you for my lack of computer skills with my iPhone. I want to thank you for putting on the agenda the review of about communication with the zoning board and the review and approve communication to the Department of Environmental Protection regarding wastewater treatment. Thank you very much for putting those on the agenda.
Sure.
Since you are both, since you are all the elected officials that oversee the water department, I think it's important to stress this fact about the water department. And you have seen some emails, but the head of the water department responded. I indicated that the Holliston Water Department would be the department that should know more about our drinking water wells than the DEP, and he's expected to have local knowledge, and the zoning board should have access to his expertise. I was very surprised in response to this request that the water department have input with the DEP, because I had sent you a document from the town of Stowe where the 40B, or I should say it, and this, okay, was a 40B apartment was denied because of a drinking water problem. And I think that there are issues with the drinking water with regard to this. This is a huge project. I think everybody will admit that it's a huge project. And so I want to make some recommendations with regard to the oversight of the effluent or the gray water that is coming from the from this complex. And we're talking about 46,000 gallons a day. I think we need to think about that 46,000 gallons a day that's going to be pushed into our aquifer and our zone 2. And so I'd like you to consider perhaps that you might ask the DEP to look at our sodium levels coming out of the gray water. I think that our range has been above the Office of Research and Standards guideline. If they're going to chlorinate the water, then I would recommend that you look at haloacetic acids. We've been above that, and above the OR, Office of Research and Standards standard, and then also nitrates, where in this situation we're going to be looking at the importance of nitrates is because they come from fertilizer. They're probably going to have a lot of green areas there. It also comes from sewerage and leaching from septic tanks. I think that it's very important for us to protect our drinking water. And as I said to you in an email, I think it's appalling. That's the only reaction I could have, that when I asked the head of the water department to consider looking at issues from this huge complex, looking at the discharge, that his response was that there were 50 homes, in the neighborhood that discharged gray water. I think that there have been past mistakes, but that doesn't give us the right or to think that someone who is in charge of safety of drinking water, that it's okay to put out 5 times that amount of discharge and put out 48,000 gallons a day and not give it some consideration. And so I'm hoping, of course, that you look at PFAS, as I indicated in my email. We have PFAS in our water. This complex is definitely going to be putting out more PFAS, and there is no reason why Hopkinton could put in a treatment plant so that they have zero PFAS in their water, when we know that we have had PFAS in our water from 2021, and all that we're looking at this point is a pilot program. And for the superintendent of he's superintendent of, unfortunately, of the DPW, for him to indicate that we're doing a pilot program and that there's concern about the millions it's going to cost this town. I am sure if you brought an issue that dealt with everybody's drinking water, that the money would come just as it has come for other projects in this town.
Liz, can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question about PFAS? What does the
Sure.
Mass DEP say as the level that we should be below for PFAS?
20. It's 20 parts per trillion. I think that's what, I should have indicated that in my chart. An MCL is what the level should be. But the problem with PFAS, these forever chemicals, it's a whole group of chemicals, and now we have PFAS also. But it's a whole group of chemicals. And one of the big issues with PFAS is that people have filters on their in their homes. They might have, like, I have a one in under my kitchen sink that filters all the cold water. But I have checked with the manufacturer of that filter to see if I could get a better filter. And right now, there are not home filters that remove PFAS, except one of the exceptional systems is if you have reverse osmosis, and that is a very expensive system. And so I think people are ignorant of the fact that we have this PFAS in our water, and the PFAS is not being removed by our filters. So we certainly don't want 48,000 gallons of water a day that have PFAS in them moving into our Zone 2 and our aquifer. And I think that, yes, DEP is making a decision on this, but certainly we need to consider our situation. For instance, if this complex was being built in Hopkinton, they wouldn't have to worry about PFAS. But we're in Holliston, and we should worry about PFAS. And the longer that the water department puts off this issue of putting in a treatment plant, the more expensive it's going to be, and the more issues we're going to have with contamination.
Liz, do I hear you? Liz,
I'm sorry.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but you shared a number of comments, and I just want to make sure I capture the intent of them, which is you're asking the board to consider in our letter to DEP that we are requesting test results on contaminants?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that you request DEP
Okay.
to test the effluent of the septic system, and test the effluent of the septic system for PFAS, for nitrates, for sodium.
Okay.
Do you mind
And for, if they're going to chlorinate their water as a way of purifying the water before it comes out, before it's becomes an effluent, before it's gray water, or I should say after it's gray water, if they treat it with chlorine, then they should looking at haloacetic acids, because we've had levels above the Office of Research and Standards.
So can I
that's,
can I suggest to
I'm
my
sorry.
can I suggest to my board that we take up your comments when we get to 7B on our agenda?
Sure, yeah, we can take those up.
Sure, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Liz?
No, that's it. Thank
Okay.
you so much for listening.
Thank you, Liz. Chimaya, just before I get to you, because you already spoke, if you don't mind, I'm just going to ask one more time if there's anyone else who hasn't spoken yet for public comment, if they have a public comment first. Does anyone else have public comment on the Zoom? Okay. Thank you, Chimaya. I want to make sure that I give everybody an opportunity to speak before coming back to someone who's already spoken. Do you have an additional comments that you'd like to make?
Just quickly, I was going to mention this, completely forgot about it. When Pooja spoke, it reminded me. I thought she would actually talk about it as well. I think the select board and the town manager and everybody else needs to evaluate the process overall and figure out how we can prevent such slips from happening. This past town meeting, somebody made the decision to ask her to go sit in the cafeteria because she was a non-voting member of the community, instead of just letting her go into the usual already secluded reserved space for non-voting members. Obviously it sounded like, when I talked to some of you, and you told me it was not a decision that was made, there was no thinking put behind this. But somebody felt the need to make this an action at the town hall meeting. And I think that is actually a complete disservice. Going back to the whole creating a safe space and environment that's welcoming for people, this is something that can cause serious damage that will take a lot of time to heal.
Okay.
Getting people to town hall meeting is a challenge for the town. We shouldn't turn away people or have a second-rate treatment of people who actually want to participate in the town proceedings and actually bring meaningful dialogue and representation to the conversations.
Yes.
I think we're doing ourselves a big disservice if we kind of let these kind of things slip through the cracks. Somebody made the choice. It might be worth discussing and figuring out how that precipitated, because we absolutely have to prevent this. One more time than it should happen.
Yes.
Because it does a long-term permanent damage to the psyche of people that want to participate in the town hall meeting.
Understood. And we can't go back in time and fix it, and we hear you, and that's why we're talking about it tonight, because we want to get it right next time. So we appreciate your comments, Chimaya. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other public comments before we move on to in our agenda? All right, moving on. Number 5. We're going to talk about the Be Social had applied for a liquor license a few months back, and we had held it in escrow based on some outstanding zoning challenges. And we've kind of had back and forth with the business owner on a couple occasions to try to sort of iron out and handle some of those things. And as I understand it, we are good. We don't have any of those issues, and we can release the license from escrow?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions from the board on that?
Nope. We've been waiting for this.
I know.
Good.
Very, very happy that we're here.
I will say from personal experience, I've sat in the room with the gentleman on 2 separate occasions in the past couple of months to try to figure out what we can do, and I'm just glad that we could get to this point so we could release the license and allow him to start serving liquor according to his plans. So I will take a motion to release the liquor license for Be Social LLC from escrow.
Is there any specific language that needs to go in? Okay.
Yep,
So
I
moved.
think we already did that when we made the original motion.
Subjected it to the
Yeah.
land use.
We're just releasing that part of it.
So moved to release the liquor license for Be Social LLC effective today?
Enthusiastically seconded.
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
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 All right, you can let him know and
Emailing it right
get
now.
him his license tomorrow. Thank you. All right. Sustainability Coordinator update. Hey, you have been so patient, Amelia. Thank you very much for coming. All the things we're doing. So we have our Sustainability Coordinator, Amelia Landau. Wonderful to see you.
Nice to see you too.
What do we have to talk about this evening?
I see that on the agenda. It's in one order, so I'll do it in that order. So to start, back in the 90s, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protections had towns adopt a buy recycled policy that was meant to sort of create a market within municipal procurement for post-consumer recyclables, and also to incorporate some other policies to just reduce like paper waste as more digital technologies and computer usage was coming on the market. It's been 30 years, and DEP is now calling for us to update those policies to an environmentally preferable procurement policy, EPP for short. Basically, these policies are not, restricting anything that we do, but it is holding us to kind of a certain standard for what we already do in our business as usual procurement, which includes using products that are listed in the Operational Services Division state contracts, and doing certain things that we kind of already do, but making them a matter of policy rather than just best practice. Okay. And the EPP is to be signed by you and then enacted by the chief procurement officer, like the town manager, in our case also James, just as like a annual memo. Everyone, all the town departments, get re-educated on what the standards are.
Sure.
The DEP would like us to sign this by the end of May, because that is when the next Recycling Dividends Program grant application is due. Okay. And so it is a eligibility criterion for that program. Okay. As a reminder, we get about a little under $3,000 a year from that program, just as a matter of course for the various recycling and waste reduction programs we run. I am seeking to maybe increase that to over $7,000 this year.
Please.
Sounds great. But we need to do this.
We need to do this in order for that to count. Gotcha. So do you have any questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
A couple of questions. I'll jump the line quickly. Is the language that you're proposing, this is the language that the DEP is requesting?
It's modeled after a standard policy that they put out that towns were free to change. Okay. Sherburne already went through this with their recycling committee, and so after they were done with their part of the process, I basically took that, checked with Frank to see if anything needed to be more Holliston-ified, and this can be changed. DEP isn't requiring us to keep it like this.
Okay. And then, and you've talked to, I assume, James and Frank, and they're both comfortable as the chief procurement officer, the main procurement people in this. Okay, great. Tina, any questions?
It was sort of related, so I'll just double down. Is this a DEP requirement? They're requiring us to comply, or we're complying in order to have greater access to the dividend program and other benefits?
Technically the latter. It's a carrot, not a stick.
Okay.
So we won't be officially
we'll be penalized.
Yes.
Okay. It's a stick shape.
It's not like 3A.
Exactly. We're not losing a permit by doing this, for example.
But we gain access to more things.
Yeah, we do, which is great.
Then the second question would be whether department heads, because I read through it, it does look like it might have operational impact on departments, potentially. Did department heads review it, or is you and James?
James and I both reviewed it. I don't think the climate action plan has been reviewed by department heads. This is this procurement policy.
This is technically on there from an earlier draft, but not anymore, so it didn't go through this most recent round of internal review.
So department heads have not, as a whole, have not reviewed this policy.
I agree with what you were saying, and reading it, I was like, a lot of this seems like things that we are already doing. But that would be my only question, but I defer to you, Frank. So if you don't feel that that's a necessary step, then I agree that it is not a light lift, but it is modernizing something that's been in practice. What did you say? It's no longer best practice, but it becomes policy. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it has operational changes that are impactful, but it looked like it might if we weren't already doing these things.
It's a lot of shoulds, not shalls. So it's a lot of, Sherburne was actually pretty specific on this verbiage because all of our waste from the town already gets hauled like through the transfer station. We're in a slightly different position here in Holliston where it's not as crucial to directly tie like our operations with our waste output and the costs associated with that. But I still think the point stands, especially related to, like, for example, the schools, which generate a lot more waste than like anything our office buildings could. It's basically just making sure that anything that's procured into our system, we know how to dispose of properly, according to what the DEP recommends.
Okay. Does it cover the school's operations?
It does.
Okay. Okay. There's something about a half ton of food waste, and I saw it and I was like, I don't know how much a half ton of food waste is, but that sounds like an awful lot and maybe not applicable here in town, but maybe it is.
The fact that you brought it up, DEP has already had that as a waste ban from the solid waste stream for a while now, and it usually doesn't apply to even us or commercial.
Okay.
But what it does do is for schools in particular, they're looking at a more comprehensive food waste ban in the future, which is why I'm currently working with a consultant and administration at the high school to see if we can pilot a composting program there to maybe get ahead of that.
Okay, great. All right.
It's not required, but we're thinking about it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
That answered one of my two questions. For the procurement policy, my reading on that is that, like you said, there's some flexibility involved. It sounds like, my interpretation is that essentially where products are readily available, where they meet the same standards, and where they represent the best value, essentially means that if you have two different products that are about the same cost, then you just genuflect more to the one that's environmentally friendly, and that's basically the encapsulation of it. Is that correct?
Pretty much. I think the emphasis that DEP wants us to put on it is like, there would have been a great outcry if it was like we're requiring towns to spend more money on
For
it.
sure,
So
yeah.
I think that's the spirit of the thing.
Okay, great. So it's basically lean towards the better choice when all things are equal. Got it. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Are you both comfortable
Yes.
adopting this?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'll
Would
take a
you like
motion.
a motion to approve? Well, actually, you specifically said this board signs it and then.
He sends out the memo every year that
Okay, we're not
kind of
voting on that.
enforces it.
Right, that's
Yeah.
follows.
Okay,
Okay,
so-
so move to accept and sign the environmentally preferable procurement policy.
Did I see that it was just me? That it was just the chair, or do we hold
I
you
think
both?
technically only the chair needs to
Okay,
sign.
so,
Yeah.
okay, so.
Vote and then sign it.
Yeah,
Like-
okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes, seconded.
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
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 All right,
Thank you.
we're good. And climate action plan update.
Yeah.
We have some information there.
So, as you are probably aware, the Climate Action Plan has been in the process of actually being drafted over the past year or so. And the most recent thing that we did to really advance that was we had a large public engagement push with a survey, a flyer, in-person and virtual workshop, so that residents could give their input on the draft list of 24 actions, and we could probably narrow that down. We were right. And in that process, we were able to get it down to 10 actions that are still draft actions, and we're now basically checking back in with everyone who left us their contact information, everyone who felt very strongly about it, and also just doing more general public outreach to make sure that those still reflect what feedback we got from the previous round of engagement. So I don't know if you have those 10 actions in front of you.
I think we do.
Yes, they are posted to the town website. You can still see the previous 24 actions, that full list on the sustainability webpage as well, just so that people can see like, wait, no, you got rid of that, why? And I'm willing to obviously answer any of those questions now. But the deciding factor wasn't just that 10 is a nice number. It was also that in order for this plan to truly be actionable, getting it down to the actions that people most cared about, so that it didn't seem like we were, picking and choosing which to start with just because they were easy when really no one wanted it. There's also some actions that got kind of folded together. One's related to mobility, one's related to waste, one's related to natural resources. And that was because rather than during the public engagement process, we found that people wanted to consolidate those. It was actually during the process of developing what is basically our implementation table, which is categorizing all of these actions in the form of who's responsible for carrying them out, what should the sort of basic procedure be for continuing to incorporate this into our business as usual. We found that there were several actions that basically fell under that same pattern of enforcement, and it would be kind of more advantageous to fold them in together as one action of the plan, because it wouldn't be a one and done thing. It would instead have to continually be worked at. So that's how we got down to these 10. If there's anything that you saw on the 24 list that is missing from the 10 list that you really, really miss, please let me know, because I really value that feedback. But otherwise, yeah, this is probably going to be the final list going into the drafting text in June.
Okay. I think, thank you. We appreciate all the hard work you put into this. It's coming along very nicely. I think 2 points I'd want to make here. And the first is that whenever it's ready, I'd love to make sure we bring in this to Envisioning Future Holliston to talk to them. There's obviously, there's certainly a sustainability component here, but there's other pieces, like if we're talking about mobility, we're talking about waste, we're talking about different kinds of things. I think there's a lot of overlap with some of the things that are already in our strategic plan, and making sure that we're sort of pulling this into that lens of and thinking about these things holistically, I think is valuable. And then, the second thing, I already forgot, so it's after 9 o'clock. That's not surprising. But again, thank you so much for all that you're doing with this. I think it would be, it's a valuable exercise, and I think it's I now remember what it was. So we're working with a consultant to do this, is that correct?
Weston and Sampson.
Okay, Weston and Sampson. We talked to them a lot about a lot of different things.
Separate team.
I know. Because they were actually doing your job, kind of, for a while.
Weird contract.
But I guess my question here is that given this information, given this sort of product that we have, is this the kind of thing that we can kind of keep updated, every 3 years, whatever, kind of keeping it fresh and alive? Or is it the kind of thing where we have to sort of re-engage with a consultant to sort of go through that process? Is it a workable document for something for Holliston for the future?
I certainly think that if we wanted it to be as beautiful and elaborate with all the InDesign graphics, then yes, we should go with a consultant. But in terms of making it a functional living document, we have a lot of the kind of procedure in place already, because the nature of most of these actions is some of them are just like one and done, but most of them are making long-term recommendations for when the opportunity is available, this is what we should do.
Sure.
And so between the actions that didn't make the cut this time and what we are kind of enfolding into those more long-term ones that are bound to change as we check certain things off the list, or as certain other climate, priorities become, are made aware, we're made aware of. It's probably going to be easier to just have, essentially similar to the strategic plan, more of like a 5-year or 10-year time, roadmap revision, rather than to look back at it as we've checked these off, now what else are we going to do? Just because there will always be more stuff that we would like to do to make our town more sustainable. So I think we don't need to go with a consultant for that, because these are pricey contracts, but as long as I'm here working on it, it is a living document to me that I think would be helpful to do the similar public engagement process to revise.
Do you last thing, there's sort of an A and a B to this, is do you feel that this would be ready by the fall, that we'd have some, this would be ready and actionable? And then do you think that there's any action that we should be taking in October, with a town meeting for bylaw changes or anything like that that might be necessary?
Not that it currently exists on the 10 action list. anything that involves something that would need, its own appropriated funding, or anything where having like, setting aside $20,000 for a separate plan that goes into more detail about a certain action. It's not, things like the one related to add more sidewalks, that's a very large undertaking. It's going to require a lot of funding. So specific articles like that, but not for the overall efficacy of the plan in order for it to get
Sure.
started.
Okay. And I think one thing that, might be valuable too is as we start looking at, as we prepare for town meeting, making sure that we're going through this, through the climate action plan lens to sort of say like, when we get to say a sidewalk article or something like that, we can make sure that we have language that includes like, hey, that this is according to our climate action plan, making sure that that is included in that process. So I'll stop talking because I don't want to let my other board members.
Some communities do a climate action proclamation.
Yes,
Proclamation.
Sherburne did in 2022.
And we don't have one.
We don't. And by adopting this plan, we have certain, the reason I'm thinking of this now is just today I had to dig up Sherburne's because the Climate Leaders Program, which is like a step up from Green Communities, requires that your municipality is committed to 2050 decarbonization or something similar. And we actually, as part of our engagement for the Climate Action Plan, asked that question of people of raise your hand if you would support going along with the state's, decarbonization goals versus not. And so that would basically count as this document by being, formally adopted by the town. But we could also do something else that would enable us to, in the eyes of the state, but also just for the purposes of enacting this, in terms of you and whose army, being allowed to enact climate action plan because the town as a whole has voted to acknowledge climate change isn't so bad.
Okay, all right. Just a thought that's brewing, but I'm not going to talk about that anymore tonight because it is getting late on our agenda. Two questions. One is a comment. Both comments. Will Frank, you'll draft the forward and then have us review it. So at the top here it says this forward in the climate action plan is written by the select board. So I might ask if you would write that on behalf or task one of us to do it.
Sure.
But
Sorry to volunteer you.
Well, you just actually
No, that's fine.
volunteered
That's
him.
fine. Just let us know.
My greenest pen.
There you go. Yeah, actually pencil, I think is what they say. But
Get a typewriter.
and then my other question is number 6, number 8. Community farm is called out here as its own action item. We have not had an update from the community farm in quite some time.
You should change that.
That or I just dig a little deeper on number 8 here because that's to me that pops out of nowhere where we haven't had any update or any activity that the board's been aware of from the community farm, and yet here it is as one of 10 climate action items. So I think we just need to connect those two a little stronger for the
I can tell you
broader
kind of where that
community.
came from. Whether or not you think that it's prudent to include it in the final plan after that is another thing. I think the initial idea, if I remember correctly, came from when we were doing our review of other communities' climate action plans and trying to base some of those actions on things that we hadn't yet done in Holliston.
Okay.
So other communities that have community farms often do list them in their climate action plan simply because it's a pretty obvious climate resilience resource. Climate action often has to do with carbon mitigation, just preventing us from emitting more emissions. But the thing that, people often, advocate for more strongly on the day-to-day basis in their own communities is making us more resilient to the effects of climate change through climate adaptation. And so the state has pretty much come around to the idea that people are going to include climate resilience ideas in their climate action plan. And if that's not the direction that we want to take our climate action plan in, I understand that. But it is definitely counts as one of the natural or at the very least agricultural resources that we can use as part of that adaptation.
I understand.
effort.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it's just, do they have the programming in place, or what would it take for them to get the programming in place? So at some point, they were on our agenda fairly often, fairly often, like once a year, maybe twice a year, and I feel like
think
there was
the
a
leadership,
CPC.
I think also the
Yeah,
leadership has changed,
right.
and I think, and I would make 2 points to that, and I'd say the first is that I think we heard this with the golf course too, when we had some of the conversations. I think there's sort of an obligation, some of those kinds of bodies that report to us, we should get more frequent updates. Certainly,
Well-
and but I think we should hear, like, hey, it doesn't have to be like every month, but like, once a year, like just kind of like, how are things going? What's going on? What's the status of these kinds of
To be one of 10 action items in the climate action plan should, I would think, connect you to a structure in place to be able to leverage, to be able to actually make change, whether it be in 5 years or immediately. That's not really the point, I guess. And so that's really my question is the structure there and active at the community farm to support it being an action item in the climate action plan? And
I
maybe
think the point should be just, really, to hone that point a little further is just, have we talked to the community farm about their inclusion and what's their.
So
what's
I've
their
talked to
take
the
on it?
community farm.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Yep.
you answered the question.
Not specifically about this, but just when I was making my rounds, meeting people in town. One of the things the community farm has, expressed is a desire to definitely have more capacity for programming, things like that. So I don't think it's a lack of interest necessarily to be included in a planning process that would funnel time, attention, resources in that direction. Whether or not we actually, as a town, will collectively want to invest in that specific kind of climate resilience measure is another question. But during all of our engagement, no one really brought it up as like a, why are we investing in the community farm or anything like that. And there were certainly other actions that we struck from the list simply because only 1 or 2 people really expressed a strong interest in them. So it didn't receive huge outcries of support, but it also didn't receive much like.
I take your point about being a very obvious thing to put in a climate action plan. I'm not opposed at all to the idea. I'm just interested to know how much we'll get out of that action item with the structure, leadership, and activity at the community farm. And if it's not there today, what kind of resources does it take to get us there? I think I just need to connect the dots.
Solar panels, and then we can get some of that money.
What's that?
The net metering on the solar panels, and we can use some of that money towards that, from that revolving fund towards that end.
Yeah.
That's where my brain went.
And also, part of the reason it's advantageous to include it on this plan is to then use that as the justification for why applying for climate resilience grants includes capital improvements to that site. So I know that there's a community biodiversity grant that I prepared an application for last year that didn't go through, that I can prepare another application for this year. Same thing with the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Action Grants. There is funding available for these kinds of things, but we as a town need to demonstrate that it's directly tied to our climate resilience efforts.
I have one last question, then I'm done, I promise. In other communities, does the community farm coordinate with the sustainability coordinator?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, for example, in Natick, it's such a long-standing entity of its own that it doesn't need to lean on that as much. Right. But I know that in the Medway Community Farm, drawing upon that group of volunteers to help with the town's sustainability efforts more generally, kind of in the same way that I might call upon the garden club if I'm doing invasive species management, things like that.
Okay.
It's more of that episodic interaction.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
I think the one quick thing, question here is there a role or there opportunities for things like the CPC to participate in some of these things? I mean, we certainly have, are there opportunities to use, because when I think of, when we think of the community farm, it was seeded by CPC funding. So, and I know they've gone to them for assistance with upgrading that, and that's just a particular case, but we could certainly expand that further. Are there opportunities to use some of those kinds of funds and some of those kinds of resources towards, climate action of some kind? whether it's, you know, buying open space or,
Yeah.
you know, there's like definitely roles and things like that. Like we've done that in the past.
It has
with-
like 4 spending categories? Or
Yeah, there's like one's housing, one's like
Historic resources.
I think there's an open space one,
Open
and
space,
then I
and
think
sort of
there's
like the general.
there's like a general. But I know the community farm is an example because I know that was originally that house was purchased through CPC, and they've done some upgrades and things like that. And I'm just wondering if there's, you know, some ways to do partnerships with the CPC on some of those kinds of things. They do a lot of stuff with parks and things like that, and obviously open space, but there could be other means. And I think, you know, to put all my cards on the table, I feel like we underutilize our CPC funding. There's a lot of money there that I don't think we're doing enough with, and I'd love to see if we can find more opportunities to do things.
If you want me to spend money, I'm your girl. Yeah, in general, I'm glad that you bring it up, just because as we've been moving from this to filling in this sort of implementation table I alluded to, one of the things that, one of the considerations in that is how much would it cost ballpark, not like
Yeah.
exact, you know, numbers, but like, are we talking, it's just me existing is enough to get it done, or do we need millions of dollars
Right.
to put sidewalks everywhere, you know?
Right.
And so for this particular action, CPC funding is one of the primary ways that any of these improvements could be funded
Right.
more reliably without having to rely on, you know, sporadic grants and things. Ideally, community farms are the kind of resource that can eventually self-sustain, you know, generate enough revenue, not to maybe have staff members, but to, you know, do the capital upkeep and improvements that it needs in order to maintain the capacity for more revenue-generating programs. So.
And I think maybe there could be an opportunity to partner with the CPC for even on a small scale to see if there's ways that we can do things to help protect, you know, some of the community in some ways, you know, as appropriate. I mean, obviously there's certain avenues and things like that, but just throwing that out there as a possibility that I'd like to explore.
Great.
So, any last thoughts before we let Amelia go home?
There's a survey. Do the survey.
Yes. So where can we find the survey?
Survey is on the Sustainability Department webpage on
Okay.
townofholliston.us.
Excellent. Well, okay. And if you've heard that, please go on to the town website and go to that sustainability page and fill out that survey. And we thank you for all your leadership and your patience this evening, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
All right. Moving on to the discussion of the proposed 40B development at 194 Lowland Street. So we have two things to consider here. The first is a communication to the Zoning Board of Appeals regarding pedestrian safety and infrastructure. Has everybody had a chance to review the letter? And are there any comments or thoughts about that letter? We can just chime in. You don't have to wait for me to call on anybody.
I have 2 thoughts.
Let's hear
One
it.
is, to Amelia's point, it's could reference the climate action plan.
Okay.
Because mobility is absolutely 2 of the 10, and this is what we're talking about in terms of.
Yep. We could reference the master plan. Oh, wait.
Because complete streets is referenced in there, and I think the climate action plan is exactly what we're talking about here in terms of fewer cars on the road driving kids to school, because kids can walk to school.
Yes, but they need a safe way to get there.
Correct. So that was one question, is it, can we reference the planning process or the plan preemptively? I know it's not completed yet. The second was, can we reference as well the ongoing use of state grant programs to fund many of our sidewalk, bicycle infrastructure projects, so the trails grants, mass trails grants, you know, we use those to improve the rail trail. We use shared streets and spaces, we use complete streets. So we're using state grant funding to advance our goals of promoting walking and biking in the town. To not do that through this project means we will retrofit in the future. Right, like the town will always be looking to expand access for people who are walking and biking. So if we're not doing it through the development of the project itself, the sole responsibility of doing that will come to the town later.
Yeah.
As those residents move in there and they start putting their hands up to say, why can't we walk anywhere? Why can't we bike anywhere? And then we'll be retrofitting infrastructure. So this feels timing, very important, proactive, but very important. Otherwise, it becomes the responsibility of the town solely later.
I would, I totally agree with you. I don't want to put that in the, necessarily, I want to be careful of putting that in the letter, because I know that the developer was trying to get the grant, trying to apply for us, get us to apply for grants for this
Yeah,
particular.
but we're busy doing our long
Exactly,
list of backlog
but I
projects.
would rather, I want to put it on them to do it. I don't
Agreed,
want to give them
totally
any
agreed.
outs to say that we would have that option. I'd say it's their responsibility and they need to do it, and that's, I wouldn't even want to.
I think we're in lockstep.
Because I think I'm saying the same thing, but I don't even want to put the idea into the heads. I just want to say, nope, you need to do this.
Sure. Okay.
Because I totally agree with you. I don't think that it should be the town's responsibility. If you want to build a massive project, you should make sure the infrastructure is there to ensure that people can get around to it. All right, we agree. We're in violent agreement.
Violent agreement.
So, as far as the reference to the climate action plan, towards the end, we could throw a sentence in, something to the effect of, public safety measures aside, the development of the town's, the development of the town of Holliston's climate action plan has shed light on the importance of providing pedestrian infrastructure to all residents of the town of Holliston.
Mm-hmm.
Or to providing pedestrian infrastructure as an alternate means of.
Sorry, I'm totally sorry. I have not had dinner, so I'm completely
It's okay.
spaced. Okay, one more.
The nice thing about Google
I hear you. Yeah.
Documents is I
It's
can
right
watch
up there. He's
Frank actually
right.
write it.
Got it. Okay.
He's putting it down towards the bottom.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna get there 1 second. So ZBA.
It's yeah, you can see his cursor, the purple cursor there. Public safety measures aside.
Thank you.
The penultimate paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
I just highlighted it just in case.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
I would actually change alternate and say something to the effect of as an important means of transportation, or a vital, something like that, as opposed to an alternative.
Or preferred even.
Yeah,
Preferred
something
means-
that sort of emphasizes the importance of it, as opposed to giving it as a.
While you're typing that, just kind of an open question about this. So obviously, we're trying to keep this narrow to pedestrian concerns. Is there any tie in here where we should flag that study about the available parking spots? I know that that's not a pedestrian concern, but it speaks to some safety issues. It's the gap between the 425 proposed and the 500 that were required. I don't think we need it in here. I'm just asking for conversation because it's kind of adjacent, but it might muddy the waters.
I think I'm certainly not opposed to it. I just
Not
want to be,
pushing for it, just stirring it up.
personally, I just want to be careful that we don't try to like stock it with everything.
Okay.
But, Tina, what do you think about?
So
including
500 is what they're.
Is what we would technically need.
And they're-
there's
they're
425.
So that puts 75 cars on the street.
Potentially.
On neighborhood streets and parking on the.
Potentially, it's not,
I mean, maybe we should, have some language that concerns about the impact of parking to the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's not, I'm not
It's a
galvanized
good
by it,
point.
it's just a thing.
Well,
I
we
noticed.
we just heard from people earlier tonight in Mark Tree talking about the impact of having people parking on the streets and, what does that look like? And making sure that it's not, they're not moving an issue around. So maybe we could have some kind of.
You're looking to get this signed and sent
Yeah.
by.
There's no urgency, there's no real, there is urgency about it in that the public hearing
is the next
process.
meeting?
I believe, I actually don't know that their next
Oh, no,
meeting.
they had one last week, so I guess they
Yes.
have another one coming up.
Most of the hearings that they've actually had to date have just been a continuance, and they've
Right.
actually been taking up other matters. I'd expect that this public hearing process would probably at this point stretch into July.
Okay, but maybe what we could do is maybe we just rather than, we could just table it so we can just move ahead and we can just say hey, can we add some language about parking? And then, I can come back and sign it. We can just, you can just sort of circulate it internally between everybody and everybody's comfortable with the language. Because I think it's hard to edit
Yeah,
in a
in
meeting.
place.
I think it's, I think, Tim, we brought up the climate action plan, and if we could just, even include a sentence or two about the lack of parking and kind of what does that do to the community, just something like that, and we can think about it when we're all more level heads. Because if they're gonna have not enough parking in this location, are they just basically pushing a parking issue into the streets, which is kind of getting, gonna.
Back to the beginning of our meeting.
Back to the beginning of the meeting where you're gonna have, you've created, public safety issues, you've created other kinds of problems with people parking on the street.
It's a big nut to crack.
It is. But I think, we can have a letter that can address something about those things.
Also, the brain literally just shut down.
Yeah. Frank, don't worry about editing it right now.
No, it'll reboot.
Yeah. Well, I'm losing steam too. So I'm not as
we can take
acute as I should be. So I'd rather just let's those issues. Is everything else? Is there anything else people want to talk about with the language here? So why don't we have Frank, if you can just kind of tweak it, edit it, circulate it, with the BCC, so that way we can just kind of chime in, and then when everybody's kind of said, yep, we're all good to go, I'll sign it. Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. I can certainly come in. I can just come in and sign it. Is that everybody comfortable with that?
Mm-hmm.
Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Second part, the letter to the DEP. 2 points before we get into the brass tacks here. I'd like to, I'd like to make sure that this also, this letter goes to the ZBA, that they get a copy of it, that we're sending this to the DEP. And then also, is it appropriate or should it go to the Concom as well? Is the rule here?
I think that that's appropriate, given that they will be, ultimately, they will be hearing directly from the applicant.
Yeah.
I would also suggest possibly the Board of Health.
Sure. I just want, we don't necessarily have to, they don't have to be just a CC them on that, so that they can get a copy of the letter as well, to be aware of. And I think I think it's not unreasonable to Dr. Tyler's point that we request some level of testing to be taking place.
Well, if I may ask a question.
Well, let me just finish one point and then absolutely. And because I think, she raised a good point, which is basically if additional contaminants might be placed in the water after they are passed through the treatment plant, do we have the capacity or even the ability to treat the additional contaminants? As additional media need to be required and, out retrofitting and things like that. I mean, I think, our PFAS levels, if 20 is the level, we've only tested over 20 in 2023, and I believe at that point it was actually 50 was the, and I think they've reduced it, but I just heard the EPA might be changing their regulations, so obviously we're kind of in a different place when it comes to the state. But I think to that point, we just don't, they're low, but we want to keep them there, and we want to make sure that, that they're, if there's additional contaminants that are being potentially placed into our water system, that we have the ability and to treat said things. And I think that's, okay, if you want to put these things in there and you're going to approve them, we need to make sure that they're, outfitting our treatment plant, like the Well 5 treatment plant, to be able to handle those contaminants. That's my 2 cents.
Okay.
Sorry, I preempted you.
Well, so my question about the letter is the intent to provide information from DEP for the benefit of residents, or is it for the benefit of residents and staff and boards and committees? Because when I read the sentence here, the select board recognizes and respects their regulatory role, technical expertise in evaluating such systems. The purpose of this request is to help provide transparency and public understanding regarding the permitting process and the protections in place to safeguard drinking water resources. Is that to share with the community so that the community understands how DEP would permit this? Because if that's the case, I don't necessarily see that we're making requests for them to provide test data on water samples and testing results.
Because I had the different, I didn't have it as that.
Yeah,
I had it as that we were sending to them as what we wanted them to do. That's kind of how I was interpreting it. Or am I misinterpreting it?
Well, I think, I wonder if this needs to morph a little bit, and maybe this becomes a 2-part letter to the ZBA, one on sidewalks and the second on wastewater treatment and water concerns.
I think regardless, we need to make sure that we've made our point clear about this to the ZBA, that they need to keep this under consideration as they move forward. And additionally DEP, because they're going to be part of that process, and making sure the Concom is also aware, and Board of Health.
You have 4 bullet points in here. So I thought that was really the gist of the letter, was to get this information back. I thought it was for the benefit of residents, so they could understand the DEP permitting process, as opposed to informing staff and boards and committees that would then work with DEP on this project. I might have that wrong, but just those 4 bullets gave me that impression, that this was more community-facing. Sorry.
No, I think that I think one of the objectives here was to answer some of the questions that have been asked about even just the scope of jurisdictions, the varying jurisdictions, what the DEP permitting process looks like, perhaps even a few examples of similar types of plants that have been permitted in similar types of areas.
Right.
Well, what we could do there is we could actually ask them, to that point, we could put it as another bullet, what is we expect that the DEP will test and make sure that they're aware of, the impact on, given it's a Zone 2 wellhead protection district, what is that impact going to be on this, and could, give guidance on how that influences your decision-making process or something to that effect, to ensure that, that number one, those things can not be included in the water, or if, we're saying that they are going to be included in the water based on the way that this is constructed, that they should have it in their treatment plant, or we should make sure that they're outfitting ours to handle it, either
Right.
way. I mean, it's we have to make sure that they're aware of that and including that.
Because wouldn't we then be writing a letter to the peer review consultant with these concerns, right? Like, so the letter to the DEP is, hey, we're getting questions and we want to provide good information. Give us this good information that we can provide to the public. That's great. This letter is well written, if that's the intent. But then we also have that the comment here that we're going to the ZBA is going to retain a peer review consultant. And so is that the letter that the select board then writes to say to the peer review consultant, as you're working on behalf of the ZBA, these are some questions that we're receiving related to this project, and we would like you to incorporate that into your review. Are there 2 letters here? One, again, peer review consultant, and the other is as written to the DEP for information.
Yeah, and just to clarify this, the peer reviewer is, I don't want to say they're being brought on to audit or check the work of the DEP, but I think they're just sort of an extra set of eyes.
Sure.
So that's also a possible avenue. I could talk to Attorney Winter about this. I'm not sure if the condition on the permit for additional testing or retrofitting of our plants, if that would best come from the DEP or the ZBA. Maybe it comes from both. Yeah.
Maybe we get a little bit of clarification on what that looks like, and making sure that we're not trying to overdo one letter. If it needs to be 2 letters, that's fine. We just want to make sure that we get that in the right hands. I think is really the point here.
Well, again, I see our role here as liaisoning between what we're hearing from residents and the feedback we're getting with the involved parties. We're just passing along, not just, but we are acting as a liaison to pass on questions and concerns that we as a board want to make sure are being addressed on behalf of the people bringing them forward.
Frank, is it publicly available information how often Mass DEP has denied or declined a groundwater discharge permit in Zone 2, and under what situations? Or is that something, if not, would we ask them for that information?
I believe that on their website they have basically a GIS layer that provides that level of detail. To the extent that it's like readily understandable and accessible, I would have to look, but I would also think that they would be able to provide that information.
Yeah, I don't know if it's right to put it in there, but if it's not accessible, that would be, I think, something that people would want to know.
I think, it does sound like this might be 2 letters. I think regardless, we want to make sure that we're informing the DEP, but we're also informing the town bodies as well of the realities here, so we can make sure that we get that information forward and address it. And I think similarly, let's review the text and get these, and what, if you, after you consult with Attorney Winter, you can let us know if, we want to extend this letter or write 2 letters. What makes the most sense here. Yep. To make sure that we get these things addressed.
Excuse me, can I say something? I was asked during my comment period to wait until I got to 7B, so I just
I wasn't, what we were looking for, I don't remember saying to wait till 7B. We were saying that we were going to take up your comments and address those comments about testing at 7B. That was what that's what we had intended with what we said to you. And what we're trying to do here, Liz, is trying to address some of the things you had talked about when it came to testing and ensuring that, and talking about some of those concerns and making sure that we're because we're trying to figure out, talking to several different entities here, because we want to make sure that the ZBA understands our concerns about how this impacts the water supply, but we also want to make sure the DEP is giving enough information on their role and what they're doing here, because I think there's a little bit of confusion on what ZBA can do and what DEP can do, and we want to make sure that we get better guidance on each's role in this particular case, because it's a nature of a 40B. We want to make sure that they are addressed and we're talking to the right people to address them, because your concerns about water are valid, and we want to make sure that we get it to the right people to address them. Does that make sense?
Can I say just 2 things?
Yes, quickly. We're not.
One,
Yep, go ahead.
I will, very quickly. Number 1, you should know that the ZBA has traffic on at their next meeting. I can't remember if it's the 8th, 15th, or 22nd of June.
Sure.
But so I would just think that that's a better letter to go separate. The other thing I want to say is the testing is testing that you're looking that's specific to the problems we have in Holliston. And so it's important to simply request this testing. I've done a lot of research. Request this testing of DEP of the gray water or the effluent. And the contaminants are PFAS, nitrites, haloacetic acid if they're chlorinating.
Okay, so, yep, got it. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
So, okay, so we have that first letter that we're going to address with the parking and sidewalks and traffic. And then with this, if we can get some guidance on, we want to make sure that we understand who needs to hear what. I don't mind telling both the same things, but I also want to make sure that we get in the right hands what needs to happen, so that way, and we can also, the community can understand the role of the ZBA and the role of the DEP in this process. And then also, the information that needs to be sent to them can also be sent to the right entities as well.
Understood.
Okay. Does that, everybody go with that?
Yeah, thank
Cool.
you for
All right, great.
being clear of mind to state it like that.
I'm doing my best. All right. Okay. All right, we're going to move on from the number 7 here, and we're going to go on to the discussion of the Municipal Building Committee. I think I'm very much in favor of a municipal building committee, and I think I would be interested to sort of think about what that looks like for the town, what do other towns do, what makes sense. From my perspective, I think we have a lot of buildings that are sort of, everybody's siloed. The library has their building, we have 1750 that has their some of the things that are there, we have town hall, we have schools, we have the center, and everybody's, trying to do the best they can with the buildings they have, but having some sort of a means to sort of get people together to think about other places that we can work together to find ways to utilize space better. We had like the example of the 9 Green Street, that committee, and thinking about what to do with that, as we move forward with, potential changes to the DPW. We have 2 sites now. Is there a 3rd site that's potentially going to come into play? And these first 2 sites are going to become open, so being able to, think about those kinds of things and having a sort of a body that can sort of advise the town on different options and have a forum that's available, I think is kind of what I'm looking for and thinking about with this. But I know-
If there's consensus here, I might suggest then that we ask Frank to come back with an example of a chart, like a sample of a charge and makeup. I wonder if we might want to consider municipal building and land committee, or if building isn't so literal that people will only think structure, or will they also think process? But
yeah, we can. Yeah, maybe
Yes.
that might be a good idea, because I think looking at also helping. You know, we've had the working group with sidewalks and thinking about some of these things. Are there like, could there be sort of a standing committee that can advise? That's not to say they're making any decision, but they can sort of make those kind of advice decisions on those larger projects.
Okay.
I think would be great.
yeah, well, Frank, could we ask Frank to bring it
No.
back?
I'm kidding. Yes, it's late. I'm getting punchy.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think Tim's got a great point.
It's not punchy, my friend. That is not punchy. I've seen punchy, and that's not it.
Yeah, so
I'm getting punchy.
I'm like, ah. But I think, yeah, maybe we let to that like sometime like later in June, because I think June 8th is shaping up to be a lot of appointments. So maybe we move that to like the 2nd in June.
Sure.
I have only one update for the school building committee.
Okay, are you good with? I mean, we
Oh,
had
sorry.
the
As
conversation.
long as it's clear that the policy is we should have one gigantic mega building that houses all municipal features.
Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to buy the Highland Farm, right?
Yes.
We're just going to put a giant municipal complex
the
there,
Pentagon.
and it becomes all schools, all
Everything.
public safety, everything,
Everything.
right? It's the answer to all our dreams.
Sewage treatment plant, public farm, all of it. One spot.
Next to the airport.
Fertilizer straight into the ground, we're good.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
We're kidding.
I'm not, no, I'm just kidding. I am.
We're all kidding. Okay. Did you have a
Silly.
update for the MSBA high school project?
We're going to meet briefly on Thursday to just make sure we're clear on the process to start screening the candidates.
Okay.
The window closes on the 23rd to accept new ones, but we may decide on the Thursday, I'll ask for an update from Frank on the number that we have, but we may decide we want to expand that a little bit, just a little more time. I don't think so, because I think we have a robust number of interested parties, but we will just describe rather, and be clear on the process for when the window closes. So quick meeting on Thursday. We did get that letter from the MSBA, and we do not have to finalize this until July 31st. We will not wait until July 31st, because we also need to have the chair of the school building committee chosen when we finalize. So this committee will need to meet before July 31st, excuse me.
Yeah.
But we have 2.5 months. We've got plenty of time.
Yes. All right. Do you expect to have recommendations for
June
people
8th?
by June 8th? Is that too ambitious? Or?
No, I don't think it is at all, because again, closes this Friday. Then the working group will meet at some point between then and June 8th.
Through the town manager, if you can just keep us apprised, and then make
Absolutely.
sure, like, if that, because I think we'll pencil it in now that June 8th we can start making appointments, and if you need more time for whatever reason, you can let us know and we can put that off.
And if I heard correctly, the schools meet on the 28th and then
Yes.
the 11th.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, all righty, thank you. That's it on number 9.
Great. Member updates.
I will not be here on the 16th or the 22nd of June.
Okay.
So just plan accordingly.
Okay.
Do the right thing, that's all I'm saying.
Do the right thing. I like it.
The 15th and the 22nd.
15th and 22nd, okay.
Considering the hour, no updates.
Okay. I just have one that I just want to bring up. I went to the Police Memorial Day on the 15th of May, and I'd gone once before. I think it was my first year on the board, and it's a somber occasion to honor Officer Johnson, who was shot in the line of duty 45 years ago. It was it's remarkable to stand there, and he has grandchildren, and his family was there, and we had a good turnout. We had the weather was good too, which was nice, and it was a somber occasion, but it was good to be able to say thank you to our police officers. Granted, it was under those kinds of circumstances, but saying publicly, thank you to them for inviting me, and I appreciate every day the sacrifices and the work that they do running into danger. We call them, and it's our hardest day, and for them, it's just another day of the week, and we're very grateful for all the things that they do, obviously for all of public safety, but on that particular occasion it was for police. So thank you to them for inviting me, and we're grateful for all the service that they give to us in Holliston and making our community better every day. So thank you. And that's all I got.
Do we fly the flag? Yep. The Police Memorial Week is this week.
Yeah.
Do we have the flag? We should.
Yeah, it should be. It's on our.
Yep.
It's in there. It should be. Yep.
I'll double check with James.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We'll do this quick. Lawrence? To you.
One to report, May 11th, 2026, $2,330,979.65.
Okay.
I will keep this very brief. The town election is tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the high school gymnasium. And as was just referenced, the Holliston School Building Committee page is now live. You can visit the page to learn more about the project and learn more about the seats available if you are interested in participating as a member of the committee. Currently, application window closes this coming Friday, the 22nd. That's all I got.
Okay.
I move to, we have a consent agenda?
Yep.
For 13, move to approve the consent agenda as posted.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Yes.
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 All right. We don't have any other business, so.
Frank, Kathy Lane, do we need to put that through?
Oh, yes. We had a request from our veterans agent, Kathy Lang, about displaying American flags the week of Memorial Day.
Okay.
So I think the select board technically needs to approve that, given that it is a display of flags in the town hall.
These are American flags?
Crucial detail.
Yes.
Yes, these are all American flags.
Okay.
So I don't know if the board wants to vote on that.
Add it to the consent agenda to approve the.
Sure, that works too.
Yeah, because we don't technically have other business as a line item.
Oh, okay.
So
Well
that's all
played.
right. But we can, we'll do that. I mean, it's a more formality, but, any questions, thoughts?
None? Nope.
Okay. I'll take a motion to,
Move to approve the flying of American flags here in Town Hall for the Memorial Day recognition.
Or the police or fire station, it says.
Town Hall, police, and fire station.
Seconded.
all right, all those in favor?
Yes.
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 All right.
We can also add it to our agenda on June 8th, formalize it if we need to.
Yeah, if we need to. I'm not overly worried about that one.
Flying the American flag.
Yeah, flying the
over
American
Memorial
flag.
Day week.
I don't think that's a big ask. So, I will take a motion to adjourn at 10:02 p.m.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Holliston. Make sure you go vote, and our next meeting will be on June 8th. Thank you. Have a good night.